Lompoc City Council meeting. I'm sorry we're a little bit late. We are reconvening from a closed session. And let's see. City Attorney, action.
Thank you, Mayor. There was one item on the agenda. It was discussed, and there's no reportable action.
Okay, thank you. If you'll rise, join Pastor Darren Hunt in the invocation.
Dear God, thank you for the opportunity to begin this meeting with prayer. I thank you for your willingness to come alongside and help us when we ask. God, take the best efforts and best attempts to govern and progress this community and grant your wisdom, stamina, grace, and divine favor. You know our issues, you know our community, you know our leaders and our citizens. Please help this council assembled here tonight, along with citizens, officials, and leaders in this room, as the business of governing this great city is conducted. Thank you for every participant in this process, and do them with knowledge, compassion, and courage to stand for what is right. Bless this community to do what is right, to look out for our fellow man when he is taken advantage of, to protect our neighbors when they are in harm's way, and to be great neighbors. Bless our firefighters, police officers, and military members who protect and serve us. Bless those who work in our healthcare and education systems. And bless our city government and every community member as well. And God, as we are wrapping up a very interesting political season in this nation, please help us. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we have several presentations. The first is a quarterly, in case you're out there waiting, just let me tell you there's a few changes in the agenda. If you're out there waiting for item numbers 10 and 11, items 10 and 11 have been pulled from the agenda, so we will not be discussing those this evening. Okay, quarterly update from the Chamber of Commerce.
Mayor Lingle, council members, city staff, Ken Ostini, President and CEO of the Lompoc Valley Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau. Goes back a few months to July, but I'll kind of catch up what's going on. Of course, just right after my last presentation, we had our annual dinner and awards at the Vets Memorial Building, and we recognized as our Volunteer of the Year, Pat Nuremberg, the Small Business of the Year, Grocery Outlet, Woman of the Year, and Bacchus, and Man of the Year, Ron Fairbanks. The 25th, I attended the Allen Hancock Foundation Nominating Committee. I'm the chair of that committee. The committee's recommending to the full board that Rebecca Alarcio, Frank Campo, Glenn Owen, and Rick Velasco. Nice that two of those are from Lompoc, which is something I've really tried hard to make sure we get fair representation in these kind of things. So they will go to the full board on November 2nd for approval, and I think they'll all be approved. On the 27th of July, of course, we have our monthly board meeting for the chamber, and then also I'm now a member of the cemetery board. We met on that same day. It's one's in the morning, one's at lunchtime. Then, of course, attended the Veterans Court graduation here. I know some of you attended that also. That was really a great event with Judge Flores. On the 30th of July, we had ribbon cutting for Robin Lovan Liquidators over there off of E Street. Kind of a nice little shop if you're looking for some good deals. He's got some good stuff in there, so please check him out. On the 4th of August, attended the Good Samaritan board meeting. I'm a member of that board now also. Economic Vitality meeting. We had a meeting in Buellton that same day. And then, of course, the EDC here that evening. And by the way, that EDC meeting was my last meeting. And I now have replaced the chamber rep with Chelsea Cochran, my executive assistant, now the representative from the Chamber of Commerce. So I think 5 years was a good run at that, and I enjoyed that time on there. On the 6th of August, I attended the Santa Rita Hills Wine Alliance Fire and Ice event at the Mission. It was awesome. A lot of folks from out of town. I talked to a number of folks that were here from like the LA, Orange County area, which is nice to see the folks coming here because that brings money into our community because they're staying here, and they were staying in hotels in Lompoc, so that's nice to see that. On the 11th of August, the 8th of September, and the 13th of October, met with the Explore Lompoc group. We meet monthly, and just that's kind of an update for those. On the 15th of August, we had a ribbon cutting at La Honda School. They did a ribbon cutting for their STEAM Academy. STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Really a great program they're doing over there at La Honda School. The 17th of August, met with the superintendent of schools and a number of community folks to talk about the Lompoc Unified School District bond issue that's going to be on the ballot this year, and try to get support for that. So you'll see that on the ballot, and you'll probably hear more about that as we go along. On the 18th of August, we had our monthly luncheon with Child Support Services. And that same evening, we had the kickoff orientation for our Youth Leadership Lompoc Valley, the orientation meeting with the parents and the kids at the school district boardroom on that evening. On the 27th of August, attended the Allen Hancock Sports Foundation Joe White Memorial Dinner over in Santa Maria, fundraiser for their sports programs. I'm not sure how much money they made, but I think they did pretty well on that one. On the 31st of August, emceed the Military Appreciation Breakfast that Lois Capps holds every year at the Vets Hall. Always a good event. A good amount of veterans show up for that, and her staff are there to help support them with whatever needs they have. On the 1st of September, we had our Business Connection Breakfast at Nika's. They do a great job for breakfast there. If you haven't had a chance to attend one of these Business Connection Breakfasts, it's just about connecting businesses. You get a sheet, you go around, you talk to people, you have breakfast, you talk to people, you get to do a 2-minute commercial, and that's it. No fancy speeches by anybody, just a chance to get to connect with other businesses in our community. On the 2nd of September, attended Scholarship Foundation of Santa Barbara board meeting. They're trying to make a bigger presence in Lompoc. I think some of you attended the event over at Longoria they had where, again, they're trying to have a bigger presence in the Lompoc area to generate funds to support more support in the North County. Okay, then on the 10th of September, I know some of you were there, the Daughters of American Revolution dinner at the Vets Hall. That was a nice event that evening. On the 15th, we had our first Shop Small event. That's coming up again this year in November. We'll be doing that in the SIP Lompoc. And we had a luncheon that day, and our speaker was the Superintendent of Schools, Trevor McDonald from Lompoc Unified School District. On the 16th, that Friday, spoke at the retreat for our LLV, Leadership Lompoc Valley, the adult program. They have their retreat over in Buellton this year, and I always get a chance to speak to them and welcome them to the program. On the 22nd of September, I had the opportunity to MC the City Employees Luncheon, recognition luncheon, where they give out certificates for 5, 10, 15, up to 40 years. Interestingly enough, as I was sitting there doing this, I'm going, wow, you know, I worked for the city back in 1976. If I were still there, I'd have got my 40-year pin that night. But things changed, so. But that was kind of interesting. On the 23rd of September, we had the LOV kickoff dinner at the Mission. And again, I know some of you have attended that or have been to it in the past. That's always nice, you've been at the Mission. On the 27th, we had our last organizational meeting for the Veteran Stand Down that was held in Santa Maria this last weekend on the 15th. And that evening, we had a mixer at Flying Goat Winery. Let's see, as we're moving along. On the 30th of September, Economic Vitality team met at Hancock College in Santa Maria. As we're moving along with trying to figure out ways to keep the economics in this county and not leaving and going to other counties. So, on the 4th of October, our annual Vandenberg Air Force Base Airmen's Barbecue. This year, that was a big funding and support from Explore Lompoc. Great event. We served about 1,100 to 1,200 military folks, tri-tip chicken and all the fixing with that. And the Explore Lompoc folks shared gift certificates to our community for different restaurants and different businesses to get folks to shop in Lompoc. So that was a great event, and the military always appreciates that. 7th of October, we had a ribbon cutting for a new salon called Love is in the Hair over here on North G Street. So that was it's always kind of exciting when a new business opens up. The 8th of October, mural on the weekend, 8th and 9th. I know many of you saw that and attended that. What a great, awesome job the Mural Society did with that mural. On the 11th of October, I attended the groundbreaking for the new Santa Barbara County Jail in Santa Maria. That was quite well attended and very exciting. Been a long, long process, well over 20 years. So it's exciting to see that happen. So hopefully about another year and a half, we'll see a new jail over there. And of course, you all know on the 13th, we had a forum here for mayor and city council candidates. I think it went very well. I thank all of you that were in attendance to that for being here. Then again, I mentioned before, the 15th of October, we did the Veterans Stand Down in Santa Maria. Again, a well-attended event. Just, if you've never had a chance to go to that, you should really check it out. It's really just amazing event and such a well-oiled machine now. And I thank Steve Lavanino for that, because he's the guy behind it, him and his staff, and it's a fantastic event to help support our veterans. On the 17th of October, which was a couple days ago, I attended the Allen Hancock Foundation Executive Committee meeting where we recommend the people I said were nominated for the board. A couple other things, the 19th, which is Thursday, we have our introduction of our Youth Leadership Lompoc Valley program to the community. People sponsor a student, they sit and have lunch with them, and they get to know them, and then they introduce them to the rest of the group. And that's this Thursday. And I think we have enough sponsors for that now. Also that afternoon, or at around 10 o'clock, I leave to go to Luke Air Force Base in Arizona with the Air Education and Training Command. That's all the guys that do all the training of all the Missileer folks at Vandenberg, to meet with the Commander's Advisory Group from other bases throughout the country. Always a great time, and they like to have folks in the community because we're their advocates. They can't advocate for themselves, so they like folks in the community to do that. So upcoming on the 29th, we have our Old Town Trick or Treat event at Centennial Park. Last year was the first year we did it. Tremendous, tremendous event. I think it's going to be bigger and better. I mean, if you have a chance, come by and see hundreds and hundreds of kids playing games and gathering lots of candy and going home to mom and dad. Okay, any questions?
Any questions? Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Okay, now we're going to have an update from the United Boys and Girls Club of Lompoc, but I do not see them here this evening. So maybe next week, okay? Let's see, we have a representative. We're going to have an update on the Fallen Warriors Memorial Project.
Good evening, City Council members, staff, community members. My name is Bob Schrum, and I'm chairman of the Fallen Warriors Memorial Committee. And we've been organized for about 5 years now. The picture in front of you there is the flag raising ceremony at Beatty Park, which is where we're going to construct the memorial. And I felt like it was time for the committee to update the city of Lompoc where we are with the project, and financially and design-wise. Learn how to use this thing. How do I get this?
This is the next slide.
That's next slide, okay. Since the beginning, we've had a goal to recognize the Lompoc Valley residents of the armed forces, either active or reserve, including the Coast Guard, who have died in the line of duty. And we also felt like it was important for us to clearly define what we mean when we say the Lompoc Valley. We wanted to be as inclusive as we possibly could. So when we say Lompoc Valley, and men who served our country from the Lompoc Valley, this is the area that we're defining. We also felt that it was necessary to have a vision statement that would keep us on the right track in terms of our goals and objectives. And we have faithfully followed that to make it as respectful a location as we possibly could. Here's a artist, or it's in the artist rendition. This is taken from the design documentation and depicts the memorial, and it's very close to what it will look like. Unfortunately, because of cost, schedule, and some safety concerns, we were forced to make some design changes from the original design. So where you see the pedestals, this is where the names of the fallen warriors will be recorded. And when we briefed this project to the City Council in 2013, we had 38 members identified. We've worked very hard to make sure that we find as many people from the Lompoc Valley who have died in the line of duty. And today, the count is 52. So we picked up 14 members since we last talked. Another thing that has changed is because of cost, we broke the project up into phases. And phase one will be first and will include the entrance, this walkway here, the courtyard, of course, and that will be pretty much what we are able to do in phase one. Phase two will include the walkway here, which we felt was probably more extensive than we needed in the very beginning. We did have the fallen warriors, the veterans wall along there, and for many reasons, we've moved it down into the middle here and made it a standalone display with all the names of veterans who have, and they paid to have their name put on that wall. So those are the principal. Oh yeah, there was one other thing. The seating here, this seat here, we have broken that into 3 sections, 6 foot each, to be a seat. There's still some discussion about the construction of those seats, and that's still in work. But the design for the memorial has been submitted to the city planning, and the design has been reviewed, and it's my understanding that we're in pretty good shape. Just quickly, here's a view of the city from where the memorial will be sited. So it's got a nice view of the Lompoc Valley, which we thought was especially appropriate. One of the main reasons I come here today was to provide the citizens of Lompoc a little insight to the financial aspects of the project. We've been having fundraisers. Most of the income that you see here was from local citizens donating very, small amounts to some organizations, contributions like the Rotary, a number of organizations have contributed to us. But this is our preliminary budget. And as you can see, we had a budget of $199,515 when we addressed the City Council on February of 2013. We have, when we did our redesign to minimize the cost as much as we could, we reduced that by almost $100,000. So we wound up with $105,800 to do the project, and we have raised to date $91,368. So thanks to the citizens of Lompoc and the generous business community, we are within $14,432. That is, if you believe my budget. And I also am very skeptical about that $14,000 number, because my experience with construction projects is they always wind up costing us more. There's something hiding in the weeds out there that I haven't expected, and so we're going to continue on. Our plan city council members, our plan is to start construction as soon as we have the money. We've got most of the players for construction in place, and we're ready to go when we get this, if we can have some more fundraisers and come up with that amount of money. My last slide is we presented an action plan of how we expected to complete this project, and we presented this plan in 2013, and we've been working to it. And so that's our status. The permits, it's my understanding that they may be ready for me to pick up now. So I'm hopeful that I don't see any big surprises in there. I've been told that there's no big hitters in it, and so we ought to be able to work out any of the things we need to do there. The Fallen Warriors work, we'll keep that list in work forever. Let's talk a little bit about the memorial landscaping and maintenance. A part of our MOU requires that the committee remain in work long after the memorial is built to maintain it and make sure that it never falls into disrepair or become a discredit to those gallant people that give their life. Anyway, I would like to say that we've selected a chairman to head up the committee that's going to maintain the facility. And it's Larry and Debbie Jones, Landry Jones's family. And they're going to head up the committee that will make sure that we keep that facility looking nice. The dedication ceremony is well in work. And our maintenance program is, how we're going to not just keep the facility looking nice, but how are we going to improve it in terms of landscaping and making it something that the city can be proud of. Are there any questions?
Mr. Schrum, thank you very much for the update.
Well, if you don't mind, I have a flyby. Some of the citizens never saw this last year.
Sure.
Could you just mind if I show it?
Of course, go ahead.
This is a flyby of the architectural drawings. So if you were a bird flying around, this is what you should see. Those are the pedestals that the names will be on. The seat there has been divided up into 3 sections. So this was put together about 4 years ago, and there are some changes to it, but that is a very close approximation of what the memorial will look like when you go up to visit. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Well, no, thank you. Now, we have about $14,500 you still have to raise. Okay.
That's correct.
Now, just so everyone knows, the fallen warriors must be from the Lompoc Valley, but any citizen, if they have a father, a mother, a brother, a sister, and want to get a little stone on the veterans wall, they can do that.
That's correct.
That veteran does not have to be from the Lompoc Valley. So anyone out there, if you have a brother, a sister, a mother, a father, a cousin, and it's very inexpensive to do it, and you could certainly use a couple extra donations, I think.
Yes, there are 3 kinds of recognition that you can help us with by donations, and one is by buying, as Mayor Lingle said, buy a tile for a member of your family or your family. You just would like to show your support by buying a tile, and we'll put it in that walkway that's coming up to it. So your name will be in that. We've gone to great lengths to select materials that will withstand the traffic. So don't worry, I think we've got that pretty much in hand. The second thing that you can do to help is to buy, if you're a veteran. Now, the wall is reserved for people who have served in the armed forces, veterans. Doesn't mean you have to be retired, but you have to have served honorably. And we have a pamphlet that I would like to, I can hand out. I'll make it available at City Hall, and people can pick up that pamphlet and make a donation and put some information down.
Okay. Any questions? Very good. Okay, thank you very much for the update, and we're looking forward to it.
Thank you. As soon as we get 15,000, we'll have a dedication ceremony.
Okay. There was a illness. We had a sick baby, so we will not be introducing our new wastewater treatment plant superintendent this evening, but we will at a later meeting. So in its place, at the last meeting, Councilmember Vega asked me just to remind the community as to why occasionally I will ask people not to applaud, not to, be disruptive. So this comes from the council handbook, page 18, paragraph B, 4.8, decorum and order of the audience. I'm just going to read it. Members of the public attending council meetings should observe the same rules of order, decorum, applicable to council members and city staff. Any person making impertinent, slanderous, or profane remarks, or becomes rude, boisterous, abusive, disruptive, demeaning, profane, or unprofessional while attending a council meeting may be removed from the room, and such person may be barred from future audiences and meetings in question. Unauthorized remarks from the audience, heckling, stamping of feet, whistling, yells, applause, and similar demonstrations should not be permitted by the presiding officer. Aggravated cases may be prosecuted and or appropriate complaint signed by the presiding officer or a council member. The presiding officer may order the meeting room cleared, and the council may continue the session in the meeting if the meeting is willfully interrupted by a person or a group of persons so as to rescind the order of conduct. The meeting is infeasible without removal of the audience. Okay. Representatives of the press and other news media, except those participating in the disturbance and the individual not responsible for the disturbance and orderly conduct, may remain in the meeting. So that is the reason why at certain meetings I will ask you, when the speaker speaks, not to applause, not to heckle, not to boo. We want to maintain respect throughout the thing. There are times when we're presenting proclamations, or if we have, like last year when we had Danny Duffy here, bringing the World Series to Lompoc, we will applause for things like that. But we will not permit heckling, applause, booing during council meetings from the audience. So, Councilman Vega, does that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much, okay? I just wanted to make sure we were all aware of what the rules and regulations are.
Okay, good. Okay, so, yeah, and that's part of the council handbook, and it's available. Okay, let's see, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I have three quick things. One is trying to set a date for the council requested quarterly ad hoc meeting on openness, transparency, and public participation in local government. We are recommending, if it'll work out for your calendars, November 29th, will be a Tuesday, an off meeting, a non-meeting night Tuesday. November 29th at 6:30. As you recall, we were going to make these ad hoc participations where we were going to rotate assignment of 2 members. We were going to propose that we start with the mayor and the senior member, in this case, Mr. Starbuck, as the opening 2 participants. So with that proposal, we're checking to see if that's going to work out for
And what time would it be?
6:30 PM.
Pardon?
We do have something, Councilmember Starbuck and I do have something that day, but we should be able to be here by 6:30. So 6:30 is fine.
Fine.
Okay, that takes care of item number 1. So we'll calendar that for November 29th, 6:30 PM. The next item is that we have the mandatory biennial AB 1234 ethics training. And so that would be for all members. It's a 2-hour training time. Again, we are going to propose an off night for that. And we're recommending Tuesday, December 13th for that meeting to see if that works out for everyone's ability. Also point out, I think it's available online too, if you happen to have a person who cannot attend and would rather handle it that way.
That's fine with me.
If that works for you, and do we invite commissioners as well to that? So we'll be publicizing that if that's working. And again, for anybody, whether it be council members, commissioners, or whoever, we have alternatives available for self-instruction online if they need to. For the third item, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Gallivan.
Thank you. I'd like to share with council and the community that we now have our new printed marketing materials for economic development. We created a folder, and inside it has various photos on the outside of different aspects of economic development in Lompoc. And inside it has a handout on demographics. And we do have a map that will be arriving tomorrow as well. And then we have inserts that can be customized for whoever we're working with, and we can customize a presentation package for them. We have right now 16 completed different topics ranging from our largest employers to business incentives we offer. And we are updating the economic development section of our website to have all of this material and more. And that should be done by the end of the month. So just wanted to share that and give you that update. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir, that concludes my report.
Okay, we're going to move on to public comment on the consent calendar. This is your opportunity to speak to us for up to 3 minutes on anything on the consent calendar.
Good evening, Jane Bear. I have a couple of comments. One, and someone might have already caught this, but in the minutes that you're approving tonight, it says under council requests that Council Member Starbuck requested a cost analysis of water rates within 4 to 6 weeks. And I think that you didn't do within 4 to 6 weeks, right?
Let me interrupt you real quick. I actually have that down here because I recall that we weren't going to do this in 4 to 6 weeks. And I was going to refresh myself. When did we determine we were going to do that? We were going to start a rate study, but I thought it was 6 to 8 months. We had a pretty big window there.
The rate study will need to be done so that the rates that and June of 18, we have something to follow that if necessary. So the study would be done during the 17-18 fiscal year, which is about 8 months from now.
Because this would be separate from any kind of Prop 218 things, right?
Correct, because it's not, yeah, you're right. But it can be included in the overall study that was being done for rates. and Prop 218 compliance is just one component of that review.
Okay, so, okay, thank you.
So in my recollection, I think your point was you just didn't want it to get lost the next time you talk about water rates, but you weren't very concerned about when it is. So that's, I mean, a minor adjustment to the minutes.
I don't want to become engaged in a conversation, but I did have this on my items here before the consent because I will still be on the council at that point, and I don't want this to go through the cracks. I mean, I think that my whole analogy on this was there are a few people outside that are paying the higher rate, but it was some of the bigger entities, i.e. the cemetery was mentioned, that I think we might have benefit with this, and that was the whole point of this.
Right, and so I don't want to engage in a conversation with you either, Councilmember Starbuck, and you've really run my time down, so I'd like a little reset. The other thing I wanted to mention actually was for Councilmember Starbuck and Councilmember Vega, because I wanted to thank you once again for not countenancing the waste of any time on the shopping cart ordinance. And you guys have been against it, and you voted consistently. And I just want to encourage you to remove it from the consent calendar so that you can register your votes against the shopping cart ordinance. And it's important from a political standpoint, as I've learned, because, and Councilmember Starbuck remembers when he voted to allow chickens within the city limits. But then when it came to the consent calendar item, it was a 5-0 vote, and now a columnist went back and said, well, yeah, it was a 5-0 vote, and everybody was against chickens. And it's a very silly thing, and I certainly hope that in 2 years, the election is not about chickens and shopping carts. But I just think you guys have a perfect record right now. And I think a lot of people think the shopping cart thing is ridiculous. And so I recommend you get your votes on the record. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment on the consent calendar, bring it back to the council. Is there any item, well, the consent calendar consists of items that are usually routine and will be approved by one motion by the council unless a council member chooses to pull an item. Are there any items that a council member wishes to pull?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I agree with the comments that were made. I think that if we pull number 3 and vote on that separately,
What we'll do is, yes, we will.
Appreciate that.
We can go ahead and vote on that separately. So, anything else? Okay, so I would like a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of number 3. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that we accept everything except
And I'll
number
second.
3.
Okay, so this, we are voting on items 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7 on the consent calendar. Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Okay, now we will vote on item number 3. Do I have a motion? Okay, I will move to approve item number 3, and I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, and any comments? Let's vote on that. And that passes 3-2. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to oral communications. This is your opportunity to speak to us for up to 3 minutes on any item. If the item you want to speak to us about is on the agenda, it's probably best if you hold your comments till then. Otherwise, Mr. Leslie, you had asked for 5 minutes, so we'll give Mr. Leslie 5 minutes.
First off, I'd like to talk about the water situation, of the water that the city agreed to give me at city rates that I was on for 13 years. And then all of a sudden somebody got bugged to get me off of it. And so they just put me on notice and raised my rates. I have paperwork that doesn't spell it all out, but I've turned it in that it was for the trade-off of a line that goes through my property on an easement for this here trade for water at city rates. And the council said they were going to look into that, and I wondered if you have yet.
Mr. Leslie, we have looked into it plenty of times.
Okay, well, what I'd like you to do is try and look into this and get everybody to check on it one by one, each council person maybe, and see if we could get this thing resolved, because it never has been resolved. I got upset one time and I was going to dig your line up and bring it down to you, but you sent the police up there and asked me not to do it, so I didn't. But to get somebody that they're that upset that they want to do something like that is pretty weird. You know, you guys, you don't compromise, you never call me, you've never written me a letter, you've never done anything. You just went ahead and did it. You know, you put me on notice and you raised the rates. After 13 years of regular rates, after a letter from the people that owned the property prior to me that it was a easement trade. So I don't understand what's going on if you guys are, you know, just playing games because it's Ray Leslie or what you're doing, but I don't think it's fair. I think you guys should look back into it one by one with the council people and see what you think. You know, it's very important. The deal with the incident last October, it's still not over with, of course, because I'm working on it, but the city has been no help to me or remorsed or done anything. You know, it was one of your city employees that come down there and did that. Beat me with a crowbar. And nobody's had any remorse to say, hey, we're real sorry, or nothing. I mean, it's like, good job. Get rid of another business owner. And that's just how I feel, and that's how a lot of people in town feel. I don't understand what you're gaining by doing stuff like this. They were at the police department prior to coming to my shop, just minutes before. There were two people that called the police. There was only one person that was in there that ran to call the police. Nobody else even knew anything was going on unless they were told in advance. And one person called in advance. Now, gee, wonder who that was. It was another girl. It was the wife of the guy that beat me with a crowbar. But did the police do anything about that? I don't believe so, no. Nobody's been arrested. No, nothing's happened with this here. It's just the police chief told me, quote unquote, I got beat with a crowbar, a bloody mess. And he said, it's just another business deal gone bad. Can you believe that? Another business deal got bad. He told me he was going to kill me. That's a business deal gone bad? There's something wrong here. This town needs to change. If you want people to come here and open up the businesses and do things and be part of you, like it was in the old days, it was a great town. It was beautiful to live in. And something's gone wrong. And I think it's your job to really look into it and find out what's happened. Has anybody investigated it? No. Nobody's got into it as far as I know. Nobody's called me and asked me any questions. Wouldn't you think of something that bad that happened to a business owner that there would be an investigation? They never came back to look at all the blood splatter all over the floor, whose it was or what went on. The police report, if you read it, it's so backwards. It shows one minute I'm doing this, the next minute I'm doing that, and I actually had nothing to do with any of it. It was them two guys on me. They never come back and look at blood splatter on the floor and never come back to ask if they could take more pictures or do something. They've never done anything. There's never been an investigation on it to follow up or to do anything to make sure that they didn't make a mistake. They made a huge mistake. And I think that somebody should do something about it. But number one, I'd like to get my water back at the price you guys quoted me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Leslie. And just for the record, Mr. Leslie, last time you were here, we informed you that it was investigated. We turned it over to the district attorney's office. The district attorney did investigate the issue, so it's not that nothing was done. I just want, okay, I gave you your 5 minutes. I just want, please sit down now, okay.
The district attorney told me that I was too big and too tall, and I wouldn't talk. You just brought something up afterwards, and I'm
Okay, come to the podium. I gave you 5 minutes. I just want to correct something you had said.
The district attorney did not investigate anything. He didn't talk to my wife or I one iota after it was all over with. He did not approach us. He didn't say anything. His quote to me was, "There's no way he could win the case because of my size."
Okay, thank you, Mr. Leslie. Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, council members, mayor. I want to talk to you about an idea that was brought to me yesterday that I think is outstanding. So we're all aware that the Hilton Garden Inn is coming along nicely, and the bed tax from that is currently estimated to be between $450,000 and $550,000 in the first full year by the developers. This is new revenue to the city and should be used for long-delayed capital improvements rather than just being lost in the general fund. As you all know, I've worked closely with Atul Patel, he's here with us this evening, on this hotel, and he shared this great idea with me yesterday. I'm bringing it to council tonight. The council consistently has had 3 top priorities, and these funds should be divided to all 3 areas. Many Lompoc residents have said the city council must develop a plan to pay for needed facility improvements over time. And this is an opportunity to do that with new revenue, not taking away from existing revenue. Number 1, I would recommend dividing the funds 3 ways. First, for sports fields and parks, through the years, and especially during the economic downturn, they've deteriorated into a deplorable condition. Allocate $125,000 per year for capital equipment needs like a larger mower, and contract renovation of sports fields and parks, which will reverse this deterioration. These funds will pay for a rapid improvement in parks and sports fields, which will then draw tournaments, as the Little League fields have, to our mild climate, and will in turn create more bed tax, which will benefit the city. The remaining portion of the bed tax from the Hilton Garden Inn should be divided equally between the building and capital needs for the police station and the replacement of fire station number 2. All the sales tax from the property and the property tax would go to the city's general fund. And this would be a start to moving forward to resolving these long-term problems. I would hope when you come to council request this evening, you would discuss this and put it on a future agenda. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Good evening, Jane Bear. At the last city council meeting, things got a little heated, and police officers were called in to storm the chambers, threatening to remove people, and the mayor threatened to remove one person by name, Carl Creel. Apparently he's been scared off. Councilmember Vega, I appreciate your request to discuss the issue at this meeting, but I want to encourage you all to go a little bit farther than what the council handbook says, because as the Assistant City District Attorney, or City Attorney, Mr. Malavi, has often said, if there's a conflict between the city handbook and the Brown Act, then of course the Brown Act will prevail. And I think that maybe you should ask your attorneys to research Riverside and a woman named Letitia Pepper, because she sued the city because she was removed for clapping. And the thing about clapping is you can't just say it's disruptive, you have to actually prove that it's disruptive. And in the case, and for those of us who were here or watched it on video last week, you could say that the mayor's talking about it was actually more disruptive than the actual clapping. So it's a case that Riverside decided that they didn't want to make. So after spending $186,000 in fees to their city attorney, they paid Letitia Pepper $50,000 as a settlement. So that's $250,000 more or less, because somebody clapped and the mayor got mad at them. And Letitia Pepper was apparently, just from what I can read, a very annoying person, as Carl Creel occasionally is. And I say that because I'm a friend of his. So I think that the rest of you, since you all are on the hook for if the mayor decides to call in the police, I think that you, am I talking too loud? Sorry. I think that it's worth a discussion, and maybe the public participation and transparency workshop that you set would be a time to do that. I'm not sure you want to remove clappers. And to the clappers, I would say, don't go. Make the police arrest you, because that's when you'll really have a case against the city council, because that's why Letitia was successful. So something you probably want to look at.
Thank you. Next, please.
Evening, Mayor, City Council, Chris Darling, longtime resident of Lompoc. Tonight I want to speak about fiscal responsibility. Lompoc has a population of 40,000 people, and out of that 40,000, if you use the federal government's numbers from the 2012 census, 48.3% are receiving welfare. I think this is a conservative estimate for our community, since we receive 60% of Santa Barbara's Section 8 welfare recipients. I was told by a former police captain, as a matter of fact, 4 years ago, that the number was 65% on welfare. In our fair city, with this averaging out to 57% of the population on welfare, just how much would a new fire station cost each citizen of Lompoc? That leaves a population paying taxes to the city of $17,200. The plan, dreamed up by our crafty and imaginative city wizards, is to fund the $40 million by raising your utility bills. That means you, the working families of Lompoc, would pay an additional $232 per month for the next 10 years. But with staffing, financing, a new fire truck, it would be more like a 50-year payback, and I'm probably off on that number. It's probably more. This is another example of people spending other people's hard-earned money on extravagant, unneeded pet projects that leaves our city dead broke. But somehow they have a magic calculator, and we will only be paying our fair share. Well, by my count, we have 78 empty stores, restaurants, and businesses that could not stay in business paying their fair share. We are broke. 65% of Americans have less than $1,000 in the bank. 57% of our population is on welfare. And I haven't even factored in the retired living on fixed income like Social Security or a pension. We cannot afford another thinly disguised tax. Our families are broke. Nada, nothing. So those who support those people who would support these spendings, I would like them to please get off our backs with your pet programs. And in my opinion, what's going on here is they're spending your hard-earned money, you the people of Lompoc, to buy votes. Wake up, Lompoc. Please vote.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Hi, good evening. Mark Hashamala, Mental Health and Homeless Outreach. Good evening, councilmen and community. Thank you for your time. First, I wanted to start by thanking all the councilmen and all the people running for putting themselves out there and for their civic duty. I have also committed myself to civic duty, and I understand a lot of the pressures that we have, and I would plead to the community that if you do come up here, that it's constructive criticism, and we're not making this personal. I know a lot of us have. I also want to say that right now in our community, we have an amazing police chief who's actually cares and working a lot with many different committees, including myself. We have an amazing judge, Judge Flores, who is also dedicated. For those that say this is, well, that's their job and that's what they get paid for, I'm one of those people that takes my job very seriously, and we usually do a lot beyond what the description of our job is, and includes our chief. Points I wanted to make was obviously, as a community, we have to come together and communicate about these things. These are important issues, some of them that are coming to light. One of them coming up on the ballot for California in Prop 64. It was brought up by one of our candidates. She used the term thinking out of the box. If you're still living in that box, please get out, because we have to start coming up with ideas that finance things like a new police station, a new fire station. These are taxable things that are, like I said, this is already going on in our community. We should be taxing it, and Prop 64 does allow for cities to tax this. It's not just a state tax, there is a city tax, and they will be allowed to use it for police funding and hopefully for fire funding also. So this is something that should come to light. I know that might be a council, it might, in November, it might be a lot of new faces, it might not. I do plan on being here in December to approach this, and hopefully the city council will then form a committee so we can find how we can control this, how we can do this safely, how we can do the tax so we can start this fund that John has actually mentioned with the bed fund. It won't be the only fund that'll be able to, we want to look 30 years down the future. As a community, I don't know if any of you have seen this police department, but we should be ashamed of ourselves. That building is outdated 15 years ago. It's not fair. We've asked him to solve our problems and given him a toolbox. You're asking the plumber to come with duct tape. That's all we've given him. So let's, as a community, let's get together, let's discuss this, and let's figure out our solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please. Okay, seeing no one rise, we're going to close oral communication. We're going to move on to public hearing. It's item number 8, consideration of the Planning Commission's recommendation for a City Council approval of development agreement introduction by first reading. And this is Planning Manager Lucille Breeze.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. The Planning Commission has had a hearing and recommended to the City Council review and consideration of an ordinance that would allow a development agreement for the Mosaic Walk project. This was following a June 21st joint meeting where the Council and the Planning Commission directed staff to work with projects where there were state-generated time extensions on maps that had been approved some years ago, and the time extensions were again coming forward. As detailed in the Planning Commission staff report that was attached to your report, the vesting tentative map for the Mosaic Walk project, which is at Ocean and U, which is a 60-unit project, was due this year to expire. However, we worked with the applicant and were able to come to a development agreement where the applicant is bringing forward and has agreed to this agreement where we are going to have them responsible for the operation and maintenance of the frontage of the public improvements along their project site. The funding would start actually in 2016, if you look at the development agreement that has been prepared and signed by the applicant. And it would not, however, the funding would not, however, be due until the project was actually constructed and the improvements were in place. It is something that we have not really done in the city, but has been done in other communities, and it is assisting the fact that we will not have to utilize general fund funds for this type of an improvement. So the Planning Commission has extended the map contingent upon the council acceptance of this development agreement, and they are recommending that the council hold a public hearing, waive further reading of and introduce by first reading of title only, with further reading waived, an uncodified ordinance of the City of Lompoc, County of Santa Barbara, State of California, approving a development agreement by and between Tri-W Enterprises Incorporated and the City of Lompoc. This is ordinance number 1627, parens 16. So that completes my staff report, and I'm available for any questions.
Councilman Starbuck.
Who proposed the Community Facilities District?
The Community Facilities District was something that was proposed by staff as a means of funding some of the public improvements.
So it was our staff that did that then, okay.
Councilman Vega.
The fiscal impact on the property owners, would that not be never-ending by the creation of this Community Facilities District? I mean, it would be, from my experience, it would be taxes, maintenance. Is there any other CPI index or anything in that attached to this at all?
There is, as noted in the actual development agreement, there's an escalator that is identified, and it is an ongoing tax that's attached to the actual property.
Would something like this be well noticed to whoever chose to purchase this? Because in essence, it's more of a homeowners association type of entity, is that correct?
Well, there will additionally be a homeowners association to deal with the common improvements that are within the private property within the development. This is specifically for the public improvements that are required that front on the actual property, and that would be along U Street.
So it's not Melrose or anything like that, is that correct?
It is, and yes, to answer your question, there is disclosure required.
Yeah, the fiscal impact on the people purchasing this property, including, it's probably an unknown what the HOA cost would be, aside from the facilities tax or cost to this. I mean, does anybody have an estimate on what that would cost and add to the cost of living in that sort of a district?
No, the homeowners association fee, we would have no idea. That would be dependent upon how that homeowners association was structured by the developer when the actual project was developed.
Gotcha. So the developer wouldn't have any idea what the possible fees would be for a development of a certain size?
Right. It ultimately depends on what all the developer asks the city or this CFD to maintain. So it can be bigger or smaller depending upon how grandiose they want the landscape that's maintained or how limited or other features. When we did Summit View, for instance, it came in around $94 a year. Here it's looking at a year, about $165 a year.
Thank you so much.
Councilman Humpdell.
Yeah, one other question on that. They also pay the property tax and everything else on their facility, plus this would be an added tax that they're going to have to pay, right?
Yes, there are property taxes that are generated
So they're
based on their
paying-
assessed
they're
value.
Paying 3 different sets of taxes on a project when you add that to it.
Well, the homeowners association is a fee that they pay to maintain the common area. And again, as Mr. Miller indicated, what is covered by that homeowners association is something that will be determined by the developer as the project, if it moves forward.
Okay.
And the developer representative is here. I believe he could perhaps speak with you if you'd like.
Maybe in his discussion and such, I don't know how many times he has asked for extensions on his property. He's asking for it on this one too. I'm just wondering if we should give any more extensions. In other words, either develop or sell it.
Councilmember Mosby.
This would be for the city attorney, and Ms. Breeze, you said it as well, you called it a tax, but in the ordinance, we call it a fee. Is this a fee or is this a tax? Or a tax that's a fee?
By law, it's a special tax.
And the approval of special tax is an agreement by, the developer's allowed to approve this himself on the people? Is that how the tax is passed?
Correct.
So the developer's imposing it upon himself?
Correct.
At what time will this tax be paid by the developer? After the projects are built and sold, or when the HOA is formed, or when would the tax begin to be paid?
When the improvements are done and the first tax roll that occurs after that. It'll show up on the each individual property owner's tax bill.
I would expand and say when the improvements are done and it's turned over, in this case, to the city or the CFD to maintain that. Sometimes developers establish a CFD and still wish to, while they're in the marketing period for their development, wish to continue the care before they turn that over. So it all has to do with the timing on that.
Right, so if the properties are all sold the first day they're built, then technically, as the attorney said, the property owners will pay for it. So if we have new owners in each one of those, they will be assessed this tax.
Ultimately, yes.
Okay, so I'm just trying to put this in position. So the current developer has voted to approve a tax for the people who don't even exist yet.
Well, they exist right now because it's done based upon property owners, and the developer is the property owner.
And the way we do
And
this
then
is...
if he chooses to pass that on to somebody, as long as he's doing full disclosure.
Right, and it's done with a 2/3 vote, correct, to do
Yeah.
such a tax?
But any single person that eventually buys that piece of property, buys it with open eyes and as a willing buyer, willing seller relationship. Nobody's
No,
forced
I hear you,
them
I
in.
hear you. I just, and that's what I was getting at, because in the ordinance, we have it written down here as a fee, so maybe where it states fee, we could change that to tax in here on D in the ordinance in there. So we could put this a maintenance tax payment in the ordinance. I just find it interesting how the developer, and I understand why he wants to do what he wants to do, because we put a carrot in front of him to give him his time extensions. A tax carrot that he won't pay, but the people down the road will pay this.
Well, it's staff's recommendation anyway, regardless of the particular situation, particular development, that you would proceed this way in this manner with all future development, as most communities in California have been doing for the last 20, 25 years.
This is actually, if I may, this is actually a mechanism that the state legislature added for local governments to be able to deal with the fact that when Proposition 13 was passed, it reduced the ability of cities to be able to rely on property taxes in order to pay all those general fund costs that are the result of all kinds of development. So this was just a program that's been around since the late 70s, and the city has the ability to use. The developer has agreed to it, and I'm assuming that people that purchase from there, part of their bargaining on what they're going to pay for the home will include the fact that they realize they're going to have an ongoing tax in addition to the property tax they'd be paying. It's clearly a policy decision for the council to make. The Planning Commission has recommended going forward as staff has suggested, and staff has continued to recommend that, and it's a policy decision for the council to make.
And it's, again, it's I'm trying to bring some of those words back you said. It is it's the tax aspect, and it can be done. I'm in agreement with that. And it's a way of getting around 13 to a level. Getting around Prop 13 by doing this. And I understand general fund needs and such. My concern is would this be something that we set a precedent? No, we're not setting precedent, the state has allowed this to be done. But if we had a block, and what I'm thinking about, if we had a block of 10 single-family residents that were here, and we had a $9,000 assessment, we have an additional $500, $800 a year tax on those R1 houses in equivalence to this. It just seems like it's a lot of money that we're setting forward. In this case, with the 60 units that we have here, they have their own internal, they're taking care of their own internal streets, which reduces the burden significantly for the city on other streets, because they're already assuming a large portion directly of what they're, so it just seems like we're really reaching on this. And granted, I understand we need more funds, but could the extension go in place for the gentleman or the developer without having this tax?
That would not be my recommendation to you nor staff's.
I'm just asking if that is something that could happen.
It could. I would consider it unwise, but it could.
I got you. My question was, is it something that's we're allowed to bring forward? Thank you.
Councilman Vega.
Lucille, normally in the case of Mello-Roos, it's usually for improvements internally to properties, such as parks and other things that are involved in the development. Was there also a trade-off on density of how many units can be built on this property in regards to this, or was this outside of the guidelines normally held by Mello-Roos? Okay, because obviously you haven't done this before, the city has, and it's a new suggestion. And usually in the covenants that Mello-Roos have, there usually is an expiration date at one point unless it was stipulated that this is perpetual forever. The tax.
The tax. Just to be clear, this project was approved and has received a number of time extensions. Some of those time extensions were granted by the legislature during the economic downturn when development was not really able to move forward due to the circumstances. So when this project came forward requesting another time extension, we had this discussion with council and the planning commission in June and suggested that when we looked at these time extensions, we might want to approach the developer and in exchange for the time extension that the city would negotiate each one individually and see if there could be some benefit to the city from granting the time extension. So when we did work forward on these projects, the development agreement format that we had used with Summit View Homes was something that seemed like a good approach. We were then going to be looking at the exterior maintenance. The homeowners is going to be looking at the interior of the project. So there are two separate fees that would be put on. So there was no additional density because the map is already approved with the 60 units on it.
You know, the comment that Councilman Mosby made as far as road maintenance and whatever, just for clarification, I believe it has nothing to do with the Mello-Roos tax. I believe the HOA would be responsible for maintaining their own interior streets, roads, curbs, and because that would be their own little private community, correct?
On the interior, it is the homeowners
Yes, okay, so I just wanted to make
association.
that clear because I wasn't sure if Mr. Mosby was indicating that he thought that tax was going to be helping them with road maintenance.
Not, I'm aware, not internally, not. This is for U Street and the U Street frontage. That's all
I
we're
got
talking
you. And
about
then
here.
the answer to my other question, there is no time limit. I've asked this a couple of times, okay, because some developments with Mello-Roos do have a timeout on this, okay? They will expire in 10 or 20 years or something like that. So there's no covenant like that involved in this project. Is that correct?
It is an ongoing fee that will continue. The actual document extends it for 20 years, and then there is 20, then it would be extended again for 20 years.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Lucy, when was this project first approved?
2000, I want to say 5.
Okay, but there's been multiple extensions since then, some of those,
There have been, yes, the city granted a couple of extensions, and then the state granted a number of extensions.
and how long this
It was
extension? 2006, okay.
Six,
So
thank you.
Okay, 10 years. And how long will this extension be for?
4 years.
4 years, okay. 4 years, okay. Okay, so anything else before we turn it over to the public?
Thank you.
Ms. Breeze. Okay, public comment? You're the developer?
I'm the project representative, yes.
Okay, so don't give him a time, let him just speak.
I can answer some of the questions, I
Sure,
think,
go ahead.
just to help clarify some things. Excuse me. My client who owns the property, they obviously went through the financial downturn. They had a lot of interest recently in the property as far as developing it with what we consider to be workforce housing, not affordable housing by definition, but workforce housing. To answer a couple of the questions, though, when you look at this project, which is the 60 units, you're looking at, for the fee that would be imposed by this development agreement, approximately $10 to $15 a month. So that's what would be the amount of fee paid by the property owner. So you have $9,000 approximately and 60 units. So that's what we're looking at. All the internal streets, the landscape areas, the playgrounds, et cetera, will be maintained by the homeowners association. That's not a tax, though. That's something that the homeowners association will determine. They will assess that independent of the tax on the property. So what you're looking at really is the property tax and ad valorem tax is how I'm going to consider this particular tax on top of that. But again, it equates to about $10 or $15 a month. It's something that I can speak out of experience that happens in most other entities, and I think it was expressed pretty clearly that the idea here is that the development should carry its own cost rather than trying to have to use general funds to pick up impacts that are created by that particular development. So that's why my client is agreeable to doing this, because there will be the street improvements and there will be additional improvements that will be required to be maintained. And it seems prudent that the development that is making these improvements and the property owners within that development would be responsible for those improvements, for the maintenance of those improvements. So whether it's called a tax or a fee, it's something that's being imposed by the terms of the development agreement that my client has agreed to. And I think, and we did had a lot of discussions with Lucille and city staff regarding this, because it's something that you haven't done, but it seemed appropriate to us that if new developments going through your approval process are being subjected to these kind of conditions, that projects that are asking for an extension of MAP should have the same condition imposed on them. So since there was not the ability to impose these conditions, that's why we agreed to do it through the means of the development agreement. So that was the rationale for that. I don't know if there's anything else I can add to that. Like I said, my client is in a position now to move forward, we hope, with the development. They do have an interested developer in the property, so I think they're ready to move forward and appreciate the approval of this development agreement.
So, sir, if your client is ready to move forward now, what's the magic with 4 years? Why a 4-year extension? If he's ready to move forward now.
Well, I said, I don't know that. I mean, I don't know the timing of it, because the economy could go down the tubes tomorrow. I mean, that's the problematic issue with it. I think the 4 years came, and I'd have to defer to your staff on that. I believe that was the maximum term that was allowed. So after that 4-year period, there's no ability to extend the map anymore. So the 4 years was the drop dead date. Am I correct?
What other projects is your client working on right now?
My client doesn't do development projects. My client, and those of you who've been around here for a while will remember, they were Williams Brothers Markets, and they sold out to Vaughn's quite a few years ago. But they do have Olson Development out of Thousand Oaks or I believe it's Thousand Oaks, Camarillo, was the people that were going to develop this as purely as affordable housing and do it through Section 8 grant funds. That fell through the cracks when the economy had downturn. But we are in discussions, my client is in discussions right now with a local developer that's looking to move forward in relatively the short term. But it's all contingent upon getting a map extension. So there's a lot of moving pieces at this point.
Okay.
So I hope
Anything
I
else?
could answer all your questions,
Sure.
but
Any other questions?
we would appreciate your support in the extension of this project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Council, Mayor, John Lynn again. You know, this doesn't pass the test of fair and equal treatment, and that's kind of what we're all about in this country. So the reference has been made to Summit View, and you'll recall that when that project came through, our ad hoc committee worked very hard to negotiate agreement with the county, whereupon they gave us less than our fair share of property tax. And based on the fact that we received less than a fair share, the developer said, I will step in and we will create the special assessment so that the city receives its fair share. And that's reasonable and correct to make the city whole. This project is not the same. The streets are in place. The curb and gutter is in place. By having the internal streets as the responsibility of the HOA, in effect, we are actually getting a good deal. We don't have to maintain all those streets. So those homeowners are already paying an additional charge. This is a special de facto tax on this group of homeowners. And yes, I'm sure that they'll be well aware that they're going to have to pay extra. But is it truly fair that they have to pay more than the people next door who receive identical services? And I don't really believe it is. I'm certainly hoping that you will extend the tract map because it's a great project and it looks like it's about ready to launch. In addition to the economic downturn, you will all recall that recent state decisions to add sprinklers and the greenhouse gas building code section have driven up building costs by as much as 20 or 25%. And these people have been waiting patiently for the market value of this type of home in Lompoc to get to the point where they could sell these. You'll also remember that when we were doing Laurel Crossing, that they bought building permits well in advance so that they didn't have to redraw their plans and they were not covered by the new greenhouse gas rules for home construction because their project did not pencil out if they had to put 20% more in the house. So I would ask you to approve the project extension and not approve this special tax for these homeowners who will have no choice but to pay it. You're the conscience here. Act it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Anyone else from the public? Okay, seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment. Okay, we'll reopen public comment.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm pretty new to this city, but I came from a city that had subsidized, they're putting in subsidized low-cost housing. And it's creating havoc in those cities, in Orange County and Los Angeles. So I just hope these are not subsidized through HUD, because if they are, HUD will have strings attached that are like razor wire. They're going to tell you what class of people you have to sell them to, And they have all kinds of other obligations that you need to really check to make sure you know exactly what you are obligated to as a city financially and actually morally. So please be really careful on a project like this. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. Councilman Starbuck.
Yeah, a couple of comments that I'm going to make here, and Mr. Lynn had already brought up the negotiations with Summit View. I do consider that to be, sitting on the ad hoc with Mayor Langle, a little bit of a special circumstance dealing with the county. We were not going to get our fair share based upon the property tax. This is in the city where we will receive our full property tax. It seems unfair to me that the other neighbors on U Street will not be assessed for what's going to happen with their new neighbors on U Street. I just don't see it. To me, that's $9,000 annual that goes into the city, but what it's really doing is we're skirting the whole intention of Proposition 13. Obviously, it appears as though we're going to be living outside of our means because now we are digging for extra income, which the new property tax should cover. Mind you, these people will pay the developer impact fees on this. That is their fair share. So I'm all about the extension. If the project doesn't pencil out, it will. They will build. But do we want to assess all the new neighbors that we're going to have with this to feed the pig here? I'm going to vote for the extension, but not for the Community Facilities District.
Mr. Mayor, may I just
Sure, go ahead.
make sure that the council is aware of the process that we have? Actually, the extension isn't before you. The extension was granted by the Planning Commission because that's the body that's required by the city to issue tentative map extensions and tentative maps. That was conditionally approved on their recommendation of the development agreement to create a mechanism for the development to pay for itself, for lack of a better way of describing it. So before you tonight is whether or not to approve the development agreement. If the development agreement isn't approved, then one of the conditions of the resolution that the Planning Commission approved, which wasn't appealed because the developer was comfortable with the process that was being suggested by staff and was approved by the Planning Commission, I guess what will have to happen is if the development agreement isn't approved by you tonight and second reading the next time it comes up, is the project will have to go back to the Planning Commission to see whether the Planning Commission wants to change its requirement that there be a condition to enter into the development agreement.
If I could, Mayor, I also wanted to clarify because there seems to be some misunderstanding about what went on with Summit View. In the case of Summit View, yes, indeed, our discussions included where to keep from delaying, prolonging, protracting the negotiations with the county. The developer in that case did ask us to cut short, come to an agreement with the county, and that they would make up that money via a CFD or other funding mechanism. They would make up for that lost revenue. That was a portion of the CFD charges that were approved. Then there were also perpetual care costs that were picked up with that CFD payment. The same sort of things we're talking about here were done there. So I understand a portion of it was different, but a portion of it is exactly the same. That you're right, we don't have the tax sharing challenge that we had because of the annexation, but we do have the exact same issues of burdening the city with the perpetual care of perimeter landscaping and the like. Thank you.
I'd like to interject real quick here. One of the biggest differences on this also is we're comparing U Street to Harris Grade Road and Parissima Road, which we inherit as new roadways. We already own you. So, I mean, there's quite a difference in the variance here.
Councilmember Vega.
I'd like to, if we're not ready for, are we ready for a motion yet, or we're not yet?
I don't think so yet.
We're not ready for a motion? I'd like to interject also that I think that probably it would be prudent for us to get a second opinion from the Planning Commission. Even though it's come once or twice, I've gotten indications that they are also having second thoughts also. So that would be my comments there on that one.
Councilmember Mosby.
I just think it's important to understand that it's the developer who's approving a tax that he's probably never going to pay. And if it's such a great thing, would we get a 2/3 vote from the 60 people who would be owning the houses? So you have to have a 2/3 vote, from I understand, to do this. Being one person, it's pretty easy to get that for a tax they're not going to pay. So if this were a great thing, and I understand about people paying their fair share. We have 60 units that the city of Lompoc is going to be gaining property tax on, and you're going to have U Street. I don't think we're assessing for Ocean Avenue or perimeter on Ocean Avenue. It would be U Street maintenance, right? Is that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat just the end of the
The
question?
assessment would be just for U Street, not Ocean Avenue, to maintain Ocean Avenue.
For wherever their perimeter landscaping would be located. Yeah, and related street maintenance, whatever those costs are there, yes.
And the money that would be assessed can only be used for that. It's set up in its own.
Correct. It's set up and they're only charged the amount that's necessary to provide that maintenance.
You know, I saw it was a calculation based on a traffic study, correct? Traffic study? It's a head nod, yes?
Okay, yes.
It still puts me in a quandary because I think the city's actually going to come well on top. And if the public themselves who are buying these properties, because you're going to devalue them, I mean, one way or another, they're only going to go so much, and people, that's all part of the mathematical equation. And if you're going to reduce the value, you reduce the property tax. So probably in the long run, it's going to be balanced out much the same for the people who own the houses. But it's still, it's one of those tax things. It's tough for me to bite.
I think I understand your concern, Councilmember Mosby, and I know you weren't on the panel that interviewed me when we were considering whether I was going to be coming here or not, but we discussed things like the revenues that were tailing behind in the city, and this is one of those areas where we were not taking advantage of mechanisms that practically every city in the state is taking advantage of, but I understand the concern. I don't mean to say that those charges make it any sweeter or nicer. I certainly, the house that I sold to come live here, was one that we built in 1993 and 1994, and that included the same sort of mechanism and was part of what, in my case, I was paying as I went along. I appreciated having the amenities that paid for, and and when I purchased the home new, I understood those costs. They were totally disclosed, and I contemplated and considered that as the entire package of the value of what I was paying for.
And that's the only reason I lead partway for this, because this assessment itself directly benefits them. It's not like money and revenues coming in that's going to go over to the street 10 blocks away. They're going to have the nicest piece that every kid's going to want to be skateboarding on, because that thing's going to be, $9,000 a year. It's going to be pristine.
It's going to stay and contained where it is. And also to point out, those are not to exceed numbers. And it's commonplace that sometimes you don't spend the entire amount. And so once there's a reserve in place, you're only charging what it's going to take to provide the maintenance.
And again, that's one reason I, kind of leaning more towards this, is because it is a mechanism of a tax, of a form of tax, but it's one that directly, it's not going to this big pool where we're
correct
That's the assessment, so it's just kind of a.
It is not commutable to any other purpose or any other location for the same purpose. It is distinct as to purpose and location.
Right, and again, that's one thing that brings me back, that it's a direct line benefit for them. Now, granted, some of the other people get to enjoy it as well, but that's, and that's why it's based on the traffic impact study. I would have liked to seen, of course, other people get bored with traffic impact studies, but seeing the number of peak hour trips that we saw directed and the percentage breakdown could have helped that we'd see what piece that we're paying. So I mean, that's kind of why I'm leaning more towards this, because it is a tax, but it's directly affecting and benefiting them. Don't want to see any potholes there.
Ms. Breeze, would you just quickly address the speaker that, oh, you don't have a microphone there. The address, ask if this was a HUD project, and I do not believe HUD is involved in this at all.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
The speaker that asked if HUD was involved in this project.
Oh, no, these are market rate units. They're not.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, any other discussion here? Then I will entertain a motion. Okay, I move, go ahead, Mr. Starbuck.
I'm just going to make another comment. You know, it's, to change one's mind is okay. I'm just curious, though. I mean, it almost sounds as though there was a coercion here in a sense, because who brought this up? Staff. I mean, I'm very unfamiliar with this. This is the first time that we've done it in the city. So it's $9,000. I want to be real clear. This assessment basically is to do nothing more than to assist with the maintenance of the street in front of this development. I mean, Ocean is state, so that is, but we're only talking that one block there, so $9,000 a year to maintain a street, or up to that amount.
Up to that amount, and there could be for other infrastructure as well, street, sidewalk, gutter, exterior
All
landscape.
on you, because the HOA would take care of everything internally.
Internally.
Right, and I mean, the impact fees cover everything else, but, okay, I hate to use the word only. I mean, it's only $10 or $15 a month that the homeowner's paying to have a perfect street in front of their house. A short drag strip in perfect condition is what it sounds like on U Street right now. What happens if they exceed, you know, the street's in perfect shape. It cost, I don't know, $81,000 after, 9 years. Then they keep paying in. Does it go to a fund, or does it reduce? Right. Or what is the?
What we've done in the past, and I've had experience with this in 2 previous cities that I worked in, and we would keep track of actual costs. There's an individual accounting for each of those CFD locations. And we do track actual costs, actual revenue in, actual expenses out. And then as we make each year's adjustment to the property tax, and we disclose to the county how much we want them collecting based on this, that is our maximum not to exceed amount that is declared there. And then there's an assessment that typically is less than that, and that's covering what the actual costs are. We do try to build up a reasonable reserve within the fund, particularly if they have special features that might require only very occasional but large expenditures, as opposed to if they exclusively just had landscape maintenance. There's not much need of any capital reserve at all.
I was going to use an example of, we'll play what if they wanted magnolias,
right,
and not Chinese elms.
Well, so if they have something, well, first of all, they still have to build with what's in the approved palette of the city. But to the extent it might be things that are higher maintenance, then we determine that as we're trying to do, when we're doing our rate setting, to determine what's going to be charged going forward. There have been times that those, my experience in the other 2 cities that I worked in, where we have things that tick up in cost because of the cost of living, and we actually have those expenses. A lot of times they're held pretty steady for a time. We have times where there have been reductions, including dramatic reductions, because we got to points where we had everything pretty well covered and our ongoing expenses just weren't that great. So maybe they had asked for some monumentation or something that might have a large replacement cost to it, but only like if somebody plowed through it or something like that. And so we were reserved for that, and then there wasn't the need to have anything excessive. The other point I'd point out in both cities, I experienced this in both cities, we'd have situations, because these are so specific to their location, that we'd be carrying, to a pretty good standard of an exterior landscaping around, perimeter landscaping to a neighborhood, and then right across the street where they had no Melrose district, it was rather plain, and citizens would be saying, well, how come we don't get that? And we'd explain, they're paying more than you are. And we actually had citizens that said, well, we'd be interested in getting that, and had people who did vote for themselves with the 2/3 vote to tax themselves and either put into place the CFD, or if they had one, but it was one that had been established decades before, and they now envisioned having a higher, more robust care, that they actually voted for their increases. But I'm not anticipating that. I'm anticipating that we're doing a realistic assessment of what the expenses are going to be going forward, and that we're going to make that a not-to-exceed amount.
Okay, my last what-if question here. Now, obviously, we're going to tie up yourself, Mr. Wilkie, somebody in Mr. Wilkie's department doing accounting. So we're going to take a percentage of this assessment to pay for the staff time. How much of this assessment is staff going to pull off of this?
My history in the last city I was at, we had some 400 different distinct districts in accounting that went on, and we kept, it was probably about a 2% overhead factor.
And it pretty much, when it's written in, it remains at that level, so all of a sudden, if we're having a little budget shortage over here, or we're going to go build a new this, we don't pull out of that.
No, you do not mix those funds at all. You keep them distinctly different. And so our overhead amount is to ensure that the accounting is square and clean, that you don't have that sort of sloughing over going on, not at all.
Councilmember Vega.
I think one of your questions was answered, Patrick, but you're saying that these funds can't be used in any other district except for the district that they're collected from. Is that correct, sir?
Correct.
Okay, because one of my concerns is we always turn into something that's discretionary, and then all of a sudden, if it takes the council to go over there and tell staff or report something that says, hey, we need some maintenance on this road, okay, and it's not maintained as paid for, okay? Not sure what the mechanisms are there. I guess that's staff's responsibility. I'm concerned because this is a tax. It seems like the other councilmen are a little bit swayed by thinking that the properties are going to be kept at a premier little level, and I don't believe that's the case. I think they're going to be cared for at the same level that they are now, which I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I think it's going to be kept up to par. It's not going to be an additional amenity inside the subdivision.
Yeah, we're not trying to design an additional amenity, like we're not proposing we're going to put on a thicker pavement or anything on that street than we would anyplace else. However, I would say in my experience, again, going back with the other two cities where I worked, was there's definitely a priority in place. So for instance, in one of the cities where I worked, we went through a time where there was some pretty widespread copper wire theft going on with streetlights, and we had at one point nearly 4,000 different streetlights that were out. And so we were having to put people into a queue. So for most people, it was first in, first out. So if you called saying, hey, my streetlight's out and needs to get repaired, it was in a queue to get repaired. If you were in one of those neighborhoods that paid for its streetlight maintenance, you got the priority. You got moved to the front of the line because you were paying money directly out of your pocket via this mechanism and paying for those streetlights, where everybody else was not doing that, needed to wait their turn in line. That's just how we handled that one. So it's not always that it's not like, oh, they're getting gold bricked unless the developers vision is, while we're going to have some pretty elaborate landscaping, it's going to make it unique, or I want to offer some amenities. I want to have some bocce balls courts. Those don't exist anyplace else around here. You know, if they're looking for something unique, because that's matching their marketing model, then in that case I'd say, well, they are getting something over and above. But I think for the most part, you're correct, that what they're doing is we're going to give them a bit of a priority. We're going to make sure that that street indeed is in good shape if we've got people paying extra for their area.
I got you, and I just wanted to clarify for these, I see the councilman going back and forth, just so that we make a good decision here. I wanted him to know that it's not going to necessarily going to make that development any better looking, okay? This is a tax. This is a tax for road maintenance and aesthetics that benefits all of them, but it's going to be a savings to the city, actually, for maintaining that. I just wanted to clarify that because it is a tax, and we should be really careful when we implement this. You know, when they're asking for an extension on this, on their maps, I mean, are we already expired there? When does it expire? And if we did go back to the Planning Commission and ask them for a second opinion on this tax, yes, where it sounds like a waste of time, but it sounds like it would be well worth it unless we're at a time constraint where these guys are going to be out of contract with us, since they don't look like they're ready to build anyhow. And that would be one of my questions for staff.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Oh, thanks. I just want to know, they're asking for an extension here of
Right.
time. Where are we at with them, Patrick, as far as they need an extension? Has it expired already? Are they doing this ahead of time? Are we, as far as to keep everybody in compliance, okay? Obviously, they're not ready to build yet. They just want an extension for up to 4 years.
Yeah, I think Lucille has that.
I see that Lucille is looking up the extension time, but I will add that, you know, the developer makes an investment and has requested the extension. They have been working with us, and this was the direction that council had previously indicated staff should take. So having them go back is additional work for the developer and signaling some different mixed messages about our intentions here. So just, you know, certainty in development is important, and we had a clear understanding with the developer at this point, and I'll let Lucille talk about the timing on the extension.
I got you. One of my questions is, you did say it was staff's recommendation, and staff came up with this proposal for a Mello-Roos district. So to say that council proposed this or council agreed, is that what you're saying, that we agreed to this to move forward like this? Because I thought it came from staff, it came over here, and then it was a planning commission recommendation that it come back to us. Is that correct?
It originated with staff, but yes, we discussed this with council via workshopping, and our understanding was we had consensus that was going to be our path going forward.
Thank
you.
Yes, and the expiration day of the map was July 10th of this year.
So we're already out. Is that
So,
correct?
yes, we had we had 60 days to take it to the Planning Commission for approval. They did approve the extension contingent upon the development agreement being approved by council, because it is a council action to agree to that development agreement.
Do we normally not ask for an extension until it expires, or what do we normally do? Was it just because of the time constraints to get it through the separate entities is why we're dealing with it after the fact, to keep it alive?
Generally, an applicant will ask around the time, just before it expires, then we'll take it to Planning Commission. In this instance, we were working on preparing the development agreement, so we did have a little bit of back and forth with the applicant.
Thank you so much, Kim.
Okay, I'm going to move staff recommendation. Looking for a second.
Would your recommendation with one of the suggestions I said, instead of fee, you go to tax on the ordinance, the maintenance tax payment?
Or
Instead of maintenance fee payment?
ask the city attorney.
Yeah, and D.
if what you want to use is the word tax, I'll check and be sure that using the word tax throughout the document would fit. It was a way of just coming up with a definition of a term. So if you want to make sure that the world knows that what you really are talking about is a tax and somehow fee is throwing people off, I'll make sure that the development agreement doesn't do that. We'll have to have the developer agree to those changes because he's already signed it, but if that's what you want, if that's what your requirement is, then that's what we'll do.
Councilor Mosby, is that what your second would be based on?
I'll second it that way if you
Okay.
can do with the tax, yeah.
Okay, so you're seconding my motion to approve staff recommendation.
Yes, with the word tax instead of fee.
Okay, and the word tax would be based upon the city attorney going through, and it would not significantly change anything. You'd have to have the developer to agree to that as well. Is that right? Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Okay. You know what, let's take a 5-minute break. we're going to go ahead and start. Okay, this is item number 9. This is consideration of Planning Commission recommendation for a City Council approval of development agreement. Introduction, first reading. Sounds pretty familiar. Ms. Breeze.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. This item is for LOM 554, which is a 13-unit development at the corner of Ocean and R. And the project is a Mosaic Walk project. The recommendation from the Planning Commission is to waive further reading of and introduce by first reading of title only, with further reading waived, an uncodified ordinance of the City of Lompoc, County of Santa Barbara, State of California, approving a development agreement by and between Tri-W Enterprises Incorporated and the City of Lompoc. The ordinance number is 1628-16. This item was considered at the Planning Commission meeting and on September 14th at the same time as the previous item was considered, and the Planning Commission has made the same recommendation. They did extend the time extension, and that was contingent upon council review and approval of the development agreement for this project, and the applicant has signed it, and it is attached to your staff report. That completes my staff report. I'm available for any questions.
And when was this originally approved? Again?
In 2006.
2006, okay. Councilmember Starbuck.
This might be a harder question to answer, and maybe the developer here could assist. But my curiosity is, we dealt with 60 units at approximately $10 to $15 a month on U Street. This development's on R Street with about the same amount of street. What would it cost these 13 units in Community Facility District? Is it going to be considerably more? 702 then is here. So what does that break out to in per unit cost?
The answer to that was $54. Anyone else? Ms. Breeze. Okay, we're going to open up public comment.
I would make the same comments I made for the last item, but just to answer that one question, part of this project is internal. There's frontage improvement, or pardon me, there's development on the frontages, so it doesn't have the same frontage exposure that the previous project did. And again, it's in the range of about $5 a month, so I would appreciate your support on this particular item. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public? Seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. What is your choice? Okay, I will move staff recommendation. I'll look for a second. Councilmember Mosby?
I would second with the same condition. If you have the fee versus tax in there again.
Okay. Any discussion? Let's vote. Okay, and that passes 5-0. Okay, we're going to move on to, sure, okay. Move on now to item number 12. If you weren't here earlier, we had canceled items number 10 and 11. Move on to item number 12. Item 12 is revision of handbook, commissions, committees, and board members. Let's see, this is, who is going to handle this? Is this, oh, I was going to say, I don't know if that was a misprint. Okay. This is our city clerk.
Good evening, council and audience. Stacy Haddon, city clerk. Before you is a staff report requesting council adopt resolution number 6075, parentheses 16, approving several revisions to the city's handbook for commission, committee, and board members, as well as asking council to review and discuss the information presented in response to a September 20th council request regarding meeting locations of city boards, commissions, and committees that do not already hold meetings in City Hall. The updates to the handbook include council-approved revisions to the general functions, membership, and/or terms to the Economic Development Committee, the Human Services Commission, the Public Safety Commission, and the Youth Commission that were all result from the joint meetings council held between January and July of this year. Also incorporated in the council direction, is council direction from the August 2nd and August 16th council meetings requiring all agenda packets be posted to the city website and hard copies of all agenda packets be maintained in the lobby of City Hall for not less than 12 months, as well as the recommendation from the Economic Development Committee to change the qualification of the associate member position currently filled by the CEO and president of the Lompoc Valley Chamber of Commerce, allowing that position to be filled by a chamber staff member as designated by the chamber CEO president. On page 2 and 3 of your staff report, there is a list and a chart of the boards, commissions, and committee meetings, which I'm hoping that you will give direction. Currently, there are 5 bodies, including City Council, that hold regular meetings at Lompoc City Hall. 3 bodies currently hold regular meetings at the Deweese Community and Senior Center, and 4 bodies do not have regular meeting days, times, or locations. The remaining 3 bodies, the Airport Commission, the Library Commission, and the Youth Commission, hold regular meetings in the city buildings most closely connected to the Commission's general function. The Airport Commission meets at the airport, the Library Commission meets at the library, the Youth Commission meets at the Anderson Recreation Center. Staff's recommendation for council tonight is to adopt resolution number 6075, revising the handbook for commission, committee, and board members to reflect suggested revisions to the general functions, memberships, and/or terms of the Economic Development Committee, Human Services Commission, the Library Commission, the Parks and Recreation Commission, the Public Safety Commission, and the Youth Commission, as well as incorporate any council-approved changes to any board, commission, or committee meeting locations, and to make any other minor typographical revisions throughout, or to provide staff with alternate direction. That concludes my report.
Any questions for City Clerk? Okay, again, you said you were hoping for some guidance from council. Could you repeat what you were looking for?
The request from council was to possibly have staff change the meeting locations of those boards or commissions or committees that do not have regular meetings here at City Hall. So page 2 and 3, you'll see that there's a list as well as a chart that shows where all the current boards, commissions, and committees meet currently.
Okay. And I'm speaking for myself, not for the rest of the council, but I think the intention of that was for consistency, but actually the way you've laid it out, it only makes sense. The Airport Commission meets at the airport, the library meets at the library, the Youth Commission meets at the Anderson Recreation Center where they have all their activities. So to me, it makes sense. So unless, Councilmember Vega, yes.
Yeah, of course it makes sense to keep everything the same, but I'm looking for public access, ease of public access, and so that we can also be accountable. And what happens is, during my attendance to some of these meetings, and actually speaking to quite a few people, the Deweese Center is kind of out of sight and out of mind. It's really doesn't have the facilities to allow many people from the public to actually attend these meetings. It's very, very reclusive. It's very noisy there. I've been there, sitting there, and I say, even the Public Safety Commission meetings, there isn't seating there for public if they wanted to attend. I mean, yes, it's convenient to be at the police department or the fire department, but there aren't facilities for the public to attend and give their input so that they can actually attend, because it's easier to come to council. I think this is our central location. I think if you attend the meetings at the Dewey Center, it doesn't feel as valuable. What I'm trying to do here is also the commissioners that are spending their time here, I'd like them to be and feel like their time is valuable, like the people do have access. We have, time and time again, have said, hey, we want transparency, we want the public to show up, we want your input. Yet, some of the locations, it doesn't mean that every one of these groups have to come to council, but I would say the Dewey Center, Beautification Commission, some of the public safety meetings here are, it's done for convenience, I get it, but it's not done for, they don't have enough seating, so the public can actually attend. We're looking to increase public comment, public attendance. So I'd like to ask that we revise some of these things. Due to scheduling, I'm not sure if there's a scheduling conflict to move a couple of these commissions or committees to council, to the council chambers. I think that would be my only, probably the negative here.
Yeah, okay. Councilmember Mosby, yes.
When was the Public Safety Commission moved to City Hall?
It's always been, in the handbook, it's always been City Hall. But some of the chiefs, when they were running the meetings, they just moved it to either the fire station or to the police department. The last 2 or 3 meetings for the Public Safety Commission were scheduled to be here at City Hall, but they were canceled due to a lack of quorum.
Yeah, the last one I think was canceled. The one before last, we were upstairs, I think, in PD. And that's my biggest concern as the Public Safety Commission is it's difficult for public to find their way, and you also compromise your facility.
Well, that's the discussion I had and what's been raised by Member Vega and others is I had that discussion with the chiefs because of the security that's involved there. Because while we don't have an issue, obviously, with our commissioners going into the secure area, we do need it to be available to the public, and we don't have a way to screen out people then in that case. And so there's just certain people that should have access to a public meeting, but would not meet the criteria that we have to enter the secured areas of the police department, for instance. So.
Not even written in the elevator, PD, is it ADA compliant and everything else?
So our plan is to shift it here, and that's why we've been attempting to schedule those meetings here.
And then I attended an airport commission not too long ago, and it was, probably more than they normally get, but it was difficult to get in. You're walking over feet and legs to find a chair somewhere to sit down. So the room where they have it, and I think you'd be pushing it if somebody was in a wheelchair to show up there. There's just no way they could have accessed it in that little room over there. I would make a recommendation that the airport commission find a better hub, so to say. And I've, Councilmember Vega, not to say that you didn't have an experience at the Dewey Center that wasn't pleasant, but I've gone to Beautification Commission meetings there and Park Commission meetings there, and they seem to be adequate the way they've set up. In fact, we had the big Park Commission meeting there recently. You were set up for probably, 80 or 100 chairs were set out there. It was a little, I've never seen it in the big room, but it went well, and the noise was down. I think it was, 20 people in the audience and well attended here at the Dewey's. So I'm not sure where the experience that you had it.
Maybe you could clarify which room you were in. I went in, it was a small room.
Beautification was in a small room.
It was a small room, so if you're saying 20 people fit in there, I didn't see that.
We went in the big room
Yeah,
at the Dewey's, and then I've been at the Park Commission meetings as well, and I don't know what room number it is where you normally have it, where you go down and back, make a left.
It's really not in a central location.
Beautification was rough. I agree. Beautification was a little tough if you got more than a handful in there.
So what's the negative to bringing everything back here? Okay, except for maybe I see the airport, I see the library, I see a couple of places where maybe senior commission or youth commission, maybe they're centralized. I'm not really seeing a negative on all of them, but I think some of the main ones that are off the beaten path they'd probably appreciate being here.
The real positive side I could see is the ability to have microphones. Because there's sometimes that you're in there in the audience and stuff, and it gets a little faded out. And having commissioners up top here and having discussion, I think, would make it more thorough in the ability to hear what's going on. I don't know, sometimes you go to the Beautification Commission, and you're the only spectator there, so a room this size, is that needed for room?
If I could respond, I don't know if I could. Do you not think that if more people knew about it, maybe some people would be encouraged to at least attend? And possibly, we're shorthanded on a couple of commissions, and I think we need to note that it might be a little bit easier if we could. I don't think there's a negative, maybe just because you want it to stay there, but I think change is good. I think that probably centralizing what we do here, since we're here, people are here, the notices are here. What would be the negative? That's all I'm asking.
Is there a cost factor why we're doing like the smaller rooms on the Deweese as opposed to does this room cost?
I would imagine it just has to do with space availability, and to answer the question, I don't know of any negatives to keep other people that are other commissions that we're holding in other locations coming here, other than the logistics, like you had mentioned, the potential for meeting conflicts, because we do have some that are held at the same time. We just have to work through that to make sure that doesn't happen. But as far as I know, it just has to do with, as to the Deweese Center with space availability. I don't know, Mario, do you want to?
And just to clarify, if I could, with Councilman Mosley, this is all positive, guys. I have nothing negative to say. I would just like to make things better if we can. And if you guys have other comments that maybe I'm missing, hey, I'm open, okay? This is
I'm
all
all
a
for
positive
the
thing,
airport
okay?
commission.
There's nothing negative. I'm just trying to make it a little bit better.
Right, I agree with you.
Mario, could you answer Councilmember Mosby's question about the selection of the rooms for the various meetings?
Not a problem. And it is due to availability at the Dick Deweese Center. If we are anticipating a high volume, depending on what's on the agenda, like our last meeting, we went into the big room A. Our room 105 or 106 is typically where the Parks and Recreation Commission meets, and we can house anywhere from 45 to 50 people in there max. And the beautification hasn't expressed to me about being in a bigger room. They kind of like that room 107, so that's where they've elected.
What's the room number right in front of that one on the right before you get in there? What's
108?
That one's like a little smaller or something, isn't it?
Yeah, the one that has the outside of the glass area. So there's 108 and 107, but that's where they wanted to be, and they seem happy in there. But I can move them into a different room if they do want to look at alternate times.
My two biggest ones, the public safety already being back in here would be definitely a priority, I think, but the airport commission having a better location, I think it's very confining. I don't know what their normal attendance is, but the time I've been there, you have 3 or 4 guys almost sitting on their laps on a couch in the back, which was kind of, pushing. One guy was on the armrest, so it was kind of a little.
I agree. Any of those I've attended, it's been very cozy in there.
It's a nice way to put it.
Councilmember Humdahl.
Oh, just real quick follow-up on the Parks and Rec. They had plenty of room. I think you can put it together and look at the size of groups and start making designations where it's going to work out the best. We had plenty of room, plenty of chance to talk to all the commissioners, and we had several people there that could make comments. And you even had a box like what you're sitting at for them to talk at. So I think you can do it. Look at the different facilities, how you can make them work, and we've got enough of them, and I think it's the idea if they're too small, then we're just going to have to go to a bigger area.
And we could break up that banquet room A into the 3 or 4 different arrangements too, so it can accommodate multiple sizes.
I have a question for Mario. Mario, you said no one's complained or no one's stated anything, but I don't think anybody's going to say anything really, okay? I think they're going wherever you place them, and all we're trying to do is provide ease of access and to make sure, because I can tell you from my going in the small room, there wasn't much room in there, okay? And I understand there's low turnout. We're trying to increase that and invite some more people in because some of these commissions are lacking their membership.
Yeah, definitely. I can work with the Beautification Commission and find a different spot in banquet room A. We can shut a couple walls and give them about a 50-person space in room there, and if that's what they would want to do.
I think it's not what they really want to do. We'd like to actually have the
Definitely.
say-so in this, okay? And that's what I'm asking council to make that change if it's necessary, okay? I don't think it's that we're going around asking all the commissions what they want. We've already kind of gone out there and polled, but I'd like to see if there's anything we can do to make better. That's why I'm open to comments, okay?
Definitely.
Councilmember Mosby.
I'd have to say, as a county parks commissioner, we always meet, in fact, we meet in this room as well sometimes, so we're always either in supervisor chambers, or we're in county parks commission chambers, or at other city halls. And it, you know, I would say city, sometimes, well, the last city parks commission meeting, there was definitely well attended. So I think, I don't know if you want to ask the commissioners themselves and see if they would, but you would get a different appearance here. Whether we bring more people here, I don't know, but
I could say something, Councilman Mosby, one of the comments that I received was, there's so many different people in so many different locations, and some of these meetings are a little bit isolated, and they are small groups, and you know what, hey, we don't want to, just because they're small groups, minimize or devalue their time. So I'm saying for consistency and making sure that the agenda and the meeting minutes and the point of order is being followed, I don't really know who's probably can actually vouch that all the meetings are being run correctly, okay? Staff is probably making a good try at it, but I don't know that we have anybody that can say that we are following agendas such as the same way the council has been, it has to. So there aren't any Brown Act violations or any other out of order discussions.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Vega. So are you then requesting that a city clerk member be at all of these meetings?
No, Stacy, what I'm saying is I just, for consistency, and making sure, people are holding us accountable. I'd like them to know that we also, we do care and we're watching. I'm not asking for the city clerk to be there, but I'm saying there are people that are out of sight, out of mind, and that's
But all
why.
those meetings are run by a staff member.
That's right, yeah, they're run by a staff member, but that's why I'm asking for when it's possible to have a central location for some of these. I really don't understand why they're all over the place. Okay? If you guys can explain why they're all over town and why we have this, then I'd be open to it.
City Manager, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond. We're not arguing the point about where it's going to be. From staff's position, just to be clear, we don't have a preference one way or the other. It's wherever you want it to be, and I agree with you, Member Vega. It's not a matter whether where the commissioners even want it to be. It's where you want to be. They serve at your pleasure. So that's why in the city clerk's report, she was asking for guidance from you. So it's ultimately your decision where you'd like those held, and we don't have a preference one way or the other on that. As to the issue about are we running them properly, every one of them is staffed has a staff member who's there at the meetings, does their best to keep things on an appropriate order. Ultimately, we don't, the only two where I'm aware of that we've got a city attorney present is with this body and with the Planning Commission. And with anyone else, if you're talking about sticking to the Brown Act, while all those staffs are familiar with it, ultimately, if we're getting into the nuances of legality, I got to pull that back because none of us are qualified to render those legal opinions. We can give guidance based upon our best understanding and knowledge. We ultimately, if we have questions, we refer those to the city attorney. And if there's a concern about process, that's where we refer those.
I got you, Patrick, and like I say, we're open to comments. If all of us collectively think that there's some benefit to having these meetings more centralized, I wasn't aware that public safety was mandated to actually be here, but because of lack of quorum, they have not met here. I think that is a step in the right direction. I don't know if anybody else has any comments here on this.
Go to the public now.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to open this up to the public.
Good evening, gentlemen. Jane Bear. I'm going to ask you not to make a move on this, to defer action, because I think there are a lot of things that you could address that would increase public participation. I think Councilmember Vega is right. There's absolutely no downside to bringing all the commissions here. It gives them a sense of importance and seriousness that I think the job deserves. If it's a very small meeting, they can meet in the admin conference room, but that goes back to the little lobby sign that Councilmember Mosby requested at our transparency workshop that, hey, this meeting's here, this meeting's here. There's only one overlap, beautification and planning. You wonder, why would you have an overlap in your commission meetings? It doesn't make sense to do that. Let citizens attend all of them if they want to. The other thing is, why are they all 6:30, 7, 11 in the morning? They should all be at the same time, 6:30. Don't make it difficult for the public. So what you're doing right now is you're making decisions that are about public participation. And I have really high hopes that the commissions will become more invigorated and that they will be a great place for public participation, for getting actual public comments on parks and what they need and that sort of thing. So I think this is too important, and with your recent focus that is much appreciated on public participation, there are other things in here that need to be addressed. A couple, you have the agenda packets, according to this document, to be posted online. Why not the agendas? Why not the minutes? Go and look on the website, gentlemen, and find out how difficult it is to find when the next beautification meeting is and where it is. It's practically impossible. And I'm on that website all the time. It's so difficult. So there's no reason why agendas and minutes can't be up there. They have to be posted anyway. They have to be sent to the city clerk anyway. So that's something that could easily be done. That's on page 39. Page 37, the other thing I'd really like you to address is when a commission decides to have a special meeting, they should have to tell you what the reason for that special meeting is. And I'll use the Airport Commission as an example of that. They canceled a regularly scheduled meeting, and they set up another meeting that was like a day later or a day earlier and 4 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. Of course, it was never on the website, and it managed to get a lot of participation because some people were notified and others weren't. So why is it a special meeting? Why is it required? That is on page 37. The table of contents is off. That's just clerical stuff. And CCC on page 2 is probably not California Conservation Corp. It's probably, CCC.
Need to wrap it up.
New Deal. Okay, please don't approve this tonight. Work on it some more. Work on it during the transparency workshop.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment. Preference from the commission, council. Okay. Councilmember Mosby.
The more I hear from Councilmember Vega and as well as city manager, the level of consistency in bringing them here, there is a level of consistency there. And I like your idea, Councilmember Vega.
Yeah. Again, where I'm coming from is here, we're giving people and making them comfortable to come to council. We look for support at these council meetings, and our commissioners, which I don't know how many commissioners that you guys have, or anybody that comes to the regular council meetings, we would like to invite these people to attend and be part of the process, because I think with us extending ourselves and appointing these people out there and knowing that their time is valuable and making them feel valuable, I think that probably it would help. It would help in their participation in our process with council. Since they're an extension of us, how many of our commission members attend these council meetings? We probably could be increased if they were coming to this facility. It gives us an opportunity, and sometimes it's convenient for us to actually at times have conversations with people that we maybe have not had time to speak with.
Okay, so what I'd like to recommend, because if we want to make some changes, and it looks like we do want to make some changes, there's a lot of changes that are going to have to take place. Here, I think just scheduling is a big issue. So what I'd like to recommend is if Councilmember Vega and Councilmember Mosby would sit on a ad hoc committee to meet with our city clerk for scheduling and work out and I think you should involve some of the staff that works with the commissions, get their input as to where they want to be, or how they want to work it for times and everything else. With this ad hoc committee, get a schedule, where it's going to meet, and then come back to the council with your recommendation. That's what I'd like to see, if the two of you would be willing to serve on an ad hoc committee.
That sounds fine. I also would like to add something that we spoke about with the Park and Recreation Commission the last time. We talked about it in just kind of fee waivers, things like that. Patrick, I believe you said there's something we can work out later on as we spoke about the value of Park and Recs and them having any authority at all, or what are we going to do here? Obviously, the fee waivers, they're having to come all the way to council. If that's what we so choose, that's great, but I believe you said there may be something we can look at to maintain value within the commission, and I'm not sure exactly what your thought process on that would be, but it would be nice if we could take a look at that, or is that something that I need to bring up?
Well, you bring it up, and if you'd like, we'll prepare where we think, I'd like to work with the city attorney on it, and we'll work to be able to define what the parameters are that need to be in place where you need to approve, and what details for approval then we could leave to individual commissions, so we can work on that together.
And if we could, make that part of what me and Councilman Mosby and myself, as part of the ad hoc, maybe we can solve all this, or maybe come up with some recommendations through that process if we could. I think that building value within these commissions is something that we're here to do. We should be doing that.
Okay.
Other than that, I agree with that
Okay,
recommendation.
Councilmember Mosby, do you agree to sit on the ad hoc?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Pannoni, do we need to vote on sending this to the ad hoc, or do we just, okay, is this a recommendation? Okay. Councilmember Starbuck.
Yeah, just a very quick comment. Somebody earlier mentioned a beautification and planning meeting on the same night. This was by the commission's request that they met that night. It was the only night that all the commissioners could get together. So sometimes there's a little history to why some of these things are like they are. So, please be aware of these.
That's why I recommended that you get in touch with at least the liaison and possibly at least your commissioner on these different commissions. Time frame. What do you think the two of you can, 30 days, 60 days?
I believe we can do this in short order. I'm not sure what Councilman Mosby thinks, but I think, let's say 30 days.
Staff, are you okay with 30 days?
If we need a little bit more time, that's okay, but I just didn't want it to be like 90 days out.
Why don't we say bring it back within 60 days? I'd feel more comfortable with that. I mean, if you come back in 30 days.
Well, it depends on the level of engagement you're talking about. You've got 14 different commissions.
Well,
doing it in 30 days would be pretty tight.
I agree.
Okay, I'll go ahead with 60 days.
Within
or
60 days?
Within 60 days.
Yeah.
That would be okay.
Excuse me, Mayor?
Yes.
Can we approve any of the revisions that have been set forward on the handbook and then hold off on the meeting locations? Or you want all of the revisions that have been put forward to be held off?
It's up to the council. If someone wants to make a motion to approve those that have been recommended. Councilmember Vega.
I think that probably, I don't see anything negative to us having the ad hoc committee. Exactly what would we be approving? I read the staff report, but what of importance is here that couldn't wait?
The suggestion would be that you approve Resolution 6075, paren
Which is the
16,
whole thing.
which adopts all of the red line changes that were in the handbook.
Yep.
And that has nothing to do with where they're going to meet, which is what the ad hoc committee would deal with.
Okay, so we're subject to making changes anyway?
For sure.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I got you.
So,
I can make that recommendation. Joe, you want to repeat that or not? No?
staff recommendation.
Staff recommendation, how about that?
Second.
Any discussion? Let's vote. That passes 5-0. Okay, let's go on to item number 13. Adoption of Resolution 6073, appendices 16, suspending code enforcement regarding certain setbacks. And this is Ms. Breeze.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening again. This action is a result of council direction that staff was provided on September 20th. We had provided a presentation regarding city zoning setbacks, and it was due to a request from property owner at 512 South T Street to allow an accessory structure built in the side yard setback without a building permit to remain in place. Council directed staff to return with an action allowing suspension of code enforcement on setback complaints until completion of the zoning ordinance update. We've prepared resolution number 6073, identifying specific areas of the zoning ordinance that staff believes would have to be suspended to meet the council's intent. This action would apply to fences and structures in the side and rear setbacks citywide. Front yard setbacks would not be impacted by this action. Any complainants regarding the provision, or complaints regarding the provisions of the municipal code, which the council is directing not currently be enforced, will be advised of the council action, and staff will not take any action regarding those complaints during the suspension period. I'd just like to note that the property at 512 South T Street, the other violations of the municipal code that are identified in your staff report would still be an issue and would still need to be addressed by the property owner. The areas where we would feel meet the council's intention by suspending the code enforcement on those specific sections are identified. There's actually 10 sections in the code which we have called out, and they're in bold here so that any accessory structures or fences that are located in these specific areas, no code enforcement action would be taken on them. There are some areas where there's, like in the OTC, there's no side yard requirement, so there would be no action taken there, but the rear yard is 10 feet. So we tried to lay it out so it would be clear what sections we would actually be suspending enforcement on. We also did not suspend in the industrial zone areas specifically that speak to a setback where you're adjacent to a residential area. That was the intent there, is buffering negative impacts for sensitive receptors, so we didn't anticipate that that was the council's intent. In each of the areas, we have tried to identify it, and it's included in the resolution. We would like to ask council for some further direction. There could be some unintended consequences and confusion regarding implementation of the suspension. It has to do some with timing. If someone currently has a structure within the setback and a building permit has not been issued, no building inspection of the structure has been conducted, then what would council anticipation be on that? We really, suspending the building code is not part of this. This is just simply suspending the planning code enforcement action on these specific violations. So we are asking, it's kind of difficult for the city to know that there's buildings that require a building permit and someone comes in and asks about it. Would your anticipation be that we not issue building permits, that if we're going to suspend that requirement from planning, would we require that there be inspections? We just have some not quite clear direction.
Councilmember Starbuck.
Yeah, when we discussed this last time, it was not to interfere with any projects that came in or applied. What it was a retro of code enforcement going out and enforcing 30-year-old sheds, setbacks. I'm going to be candid. After that meeting, I went to mine. I have a standard lot. I don't have an exceptionally large home. I measured out if I wanted to put a 5x5 shed in my backyard, and I am absolutely in violation no matter where I put the shed in my yard, according to this. The whole intent, and I thought the direction was fairly clear, was that we are not going to go out and do code enforcement on people that have existing structures. It does not affect anybody that comes in and applies now. Those people would have to meet the current standard till the zoning ordinance is repaired. I don't get all the big mumbo jumbo. Obviously, we're not going to have it in the industrial areas or any of these other projects. This is a 30-year-old whatever home. We're having this with fences and easements, and we just need to get a standard that is acceptable to everybody in the community.
Ms. Breeze, and maybe the city attorney needs to help with this as well. Did we sort of jump the gun? Should this staff request or council request gone to the planning commission for their input before it came to us?
It's not legally required.
Okay. Second question is, if we, let's say we approve what Councilmember Starbuck wants to do, is that considered an improved property then? And would the property owner be liable for possibly additional real estate taxes? Are we improving his property?
The structure, when a building permit is issued for an addition or any improvement, that is then reported to the county, and it can increase property tax generally.
Okay.
And that issue is what Ms. Breeze was trying to describe when she said the difficulty will be if there's a 30-year-old building out there that required a building permit and it didn't have a building permit and someone complained about it and now we know the building's there, is your intent to sort of close your eyes and not think about that building to have a building permit, have a building permit issued for something that's in violation of your zoning code, or what? We're just trying to understand what it is you want the staff to do if they get a complaint about a building that doesn't have a building permit, even if it's 30 years old.
You know, Mayor, this is a little off subject, but we went through this during the general plan update. What about the little house that's in somebody's backyard? We can't find a permit. It's not a legal structure now. We
And
beat
Mr.
this horse to
Starbuck, and
death.
for that, we actually changed the zoning code to allow that to happen.
That's the point.
So now you want us to change the zoning code for this particular time right now, or you want us to do it as part of the land use zoning amendments we're doing?
Not for the bill. I want it done when we do the zoning change. But in the meantime, I don't want to continually have people coming up to build a fence and say, oh, the city's going to make me tear it down. My hedge is too high. This building is up against the corner. These are existing. We may change that when we go through the process with the zoning ordinance. We still have time that we're doing on the zoning ordinance. We're just up to signs now. But we're spending more of staff time going after things that have been here for 30 or 40 years than we are fixing what we need to fix on it.
So is it the consensus of the council that if a building is an illegal building because it doesn't have a building permit, and then it comes in, the owner comes in to get a building permit, but the building that was built is actually built in the setback, which it can't be, so a building permit technically can't be issued. Do you want us to not inspect the building to make sure that it's soundly structured, which is what the building permit would do, or what? That's what we need clarification for, to
Okay,
make sure
let
that we
me
can
speak as
implement what you
absolutely as
want.
clear as I can here. I'm not an attorney. I'm going to speak American. Let us not enforce anything on this. That was what the whole point is. I can't tell you how many of these cases we've dealt with. Nobody's going to come in and try and put a permit on a 30-year-old building now. The only people that are going to go out there and look for the 30-year-old building is our code enforcement or a complaint from somebody about it. Wait until the zoning ordinance is done and we can fix some of these setbacks. After that point, then it would become fair game. But what we're doing right now is we're going after a guy that built something. I personally think it's hideous because, like I said, I couldn't put a lawnmower shed in my backyard that's in compliance with our zoning ordinance right now. I don't get where we're having the hurdle here.
Okay, public comment.
Lynn Woodmore, first of all, I want to thank the council for taking this issue on, because this is a heartache for many people in town besides me with this 38-year-old building that I guess a structure when it's bigger than 10 by 12 is entitled to be taxed. When I had my patio poured, my taxes didn't come up. I got a permit for it. This building doesn't have a closet, or it doesn't have running water or a heater or walls, or it's not a bedroom. It's just a shed, a building, a structure, part of a hot tub deck that I put in. But I want to thank you guys for taking this on. I might say that as they're looking at this code enforcement, find a code that is reasonable, can be adhered to, doesn't cost you money. Hounding us for the stuff you're talking about, Mr. Starbuck, is ludicrous. And the city has done it for a long time. They do it because they can do it. Just because you can make a rule doesn't mean you should. And every rule that you make costs the city money and time. We have a code enforcement guy that drives around town in a nice vehicle, and I hope he does a good job. I would like to see all the city employees with trucks, when they're driving around and enforcing codes, how about picking up debris that's in the street, the mattress, the tire, the broken pallet that's laying in the street. City vehicles drive by them all the time. You want to do code enforcement, pick that up. Again, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? We're going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. What's your choice? Nothing?
I don't even know what to say. I am just, stop the code enforcement. Let's fix the zoning ordinance. Let's make it work and then move on.
Is that a motion?
And a prayer.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Okay,
Just for clarification, was that a motion to adopt resolution 7316?
should be right in the beginning there.
Yes.
Councilmember Mosby.
And it needs to be directed to the city attorney. I believe some of the items that Councilmember Starbuck would not have been covered under this. Is it covered under a building that would potentially need a permit that's in this setback area, or a shed that would need one that's greater than is that covered in the ordinance as written?
It's a resolution, and no, that would be another consensus that we need, but I would suggest first adopt the resolution, then get a consensus on the next subject. So let's do the resolution first, and I'll suggest to you what it is we need to address after you do the resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Did you need a second on that?
No, we've got it, we've got it.
Need a third?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Vega did. Okay. Mr. Whitmore, I'm just going to say, I mean, I empathize with you. No, still, I empathize with you, but I'm going to be voting no on this. It's going to pass. It's going to pass. But I'm going to be voting no on it because I am just not sure this is what we should be doing, okay, for one individual. But I really empathize with your situation, and I hope we can get it fixed for the entire city. So let's vote.
If you can qualify your discussion,
ahead,
I'm going to
yeah.
be voting for this because it's not just for one individual.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
This is for betterment of it, why we wait to finalize the zoning ordinance and stuff. So this is why we're updating something else, we hold off. And if we do something different, we do something, and then, you know what I'm saying.
Yep, okay. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, let's vote. That passes 4-1, okay. I knew it was going to pass for you, so, okay, good.
Now, if I may, Mr. Mayor, the next issue is what we need, at least I think what your code enforcement team needs to understand is, and sorry for being specific, so we need to understand whether or not there's a council consensus on if a building that's been there a long time requires a building permit but doesn't have a building permit, and a building permit can't be issued because it's in a setback. Do you want the staff to at least investigate that building to make sure that it was built correctly under the building code and not issue a permit because it's in the setback, or not do anything with that building until the zoning code is done?
I'm going to leave it up to the rest of council because that is one of the reasons I said no on this thing, so.
You know, I mean, my preference would be wait until the zoning ordinance is done. It may not be in the setback. It may be in a setback. I mean, what was in effect at that time? Did they just build it on their own arbitrarily? Then at that time, was a building permit even required for it? I mean, like I said before, obviously throughout the whole south side of town, people assign themselves their own addresses with the granny houses. So let's fix the zoning ordinance. We go in and we see how it rings out.
But I think the question this city attorney is asking is, tomorrow, someone walks into City Hall and applies for a permit. What do?
Well, they're absolutely going to have to be in conformance with our current zoning ordinance. It's adopted, it's in place. We're fixing the one now. So, I mean, it would have to be that done that way.
If someone's coming in to build a new building in the setback, that's covered. That person's going to have to comply with the setback ordinance. Your discussion tonight didn't say anything different than that. That's not what I was addressing.
Okay.
I was addressing a building that exists now that doesn't have a building permit, that needs a building permit, that's in a setback. And what I heard is one council member saying, just leave it alone. I'm just seeking to see if I have a consensus of the council,
So I guess-
a majority of
Yes.
the council saying, yes, just leave it alone. Understanding that the building has stayed up for 30 years, and so it's probably safe, but no one has inspected it to make sure that it is.
So,
My consensus, Joe, is listening to Councilman Starbuck is leave it alone until we get done with the zoning ordinance update. Unless I'm mistaken and you guys clarify.
okay, that's
I think
two.
that's
We need
basically where we're gonna
at least one more. to agree?
I'll give you 3.
Okay. Okay. This was fun. Written communication.
Nothing.
Oral communication, this is your last opportunity to speak to us for up to 2 minutes.
Good evening, gentlemen. Jane Bear. Honestly, I hope, Mayor Lingle, that you allow someone here to explain to me why you approved 2 documents with errors tonight. Why would you do that? First, you didn't take the minutes off the consent calendar, even though we talked about it. There's a mistake in the minutes. It was not 4 to 6 weeks, Councilmember Starbuck, and you know that. And yet you, all 5 of you, said, okay, let's just approve this. And now you've approved this commission handbook. And it refers to the California Conservation Corp. And I pointed that out to you. I'm sorry. It's really the Civilian Conservation Corps, which is different. I pointed out that the page numbers are all wrong. You approved a document that was incorrect. Councilmember Mosby, you go back and look for documents 50 years old. Don't you have a responsibility to make sure that the documents are correct when you approve them? Or, I mean, who's the mop-up crew? Who should I get to say, you know what, please, I don't want anybody to read about the California Conservation Corp in this handbook? Who can fix that? Because you guys just approved that document. You guys just approved a document that the page numbers are all wrong. You approved minutes, legal minutes, that do not reflect what happened at the meeting. Anybody want to tell me why you would do that? No.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one rise, we're going to close oral communication and bring it back to council requests, comments, and meeting reports. We'll start with Councilmember Mosby.
I've got a couple items that I'd like to bring up for comment upon. I have one, if I could put it on the overhead. At the last meeting, we had a discussion of the street impact fees, and I ended up, after that meeting, I asked for a copy of the staff report of the documents that we had, and each one of you got those in the mailbox on the list that they came up with, a $22 million worth of projects list. So I don't know if you guys all had you guys all got them in the I don't know if anybody from the public wants a copy, but there's a copy of this $22 million list. And this is the document that we base this assessment upon. And you can see it's dated 10/10/03. Mind you, the impact fee final report was done November of 2003. And there's no name to it. It's a lot of, there's some math equations there. If you could go to the next page. This is the second page that they had here, and they came up with $22 million, and they said, well, say 23 million, but they did say 22 million that we're assessing on here. And as you've mentioned was mentioned at the last meeting, that this projects we don't plan on doing, but they're still in the assessment. And what I'd like to do is bring it back for discussion and action at next meeting, that we suspend this component of the impact fee, which is approximately 2/3 of the current fee that we're charging for the impact fee. If it's projects that are based on this, that we're not going to be doing, I don't see why we're continuing to do that. It will be updated with a new capital improvement plan and such down the road, 6 months, whatever it might be. But I think we should suspend this portion if it's something we're definitely not going to be doing. And I'd like to be able to bring it back for discussion and action at the next council meeting. if two other people would support that.
Next meeting, discussion
Discussion and action.
and action. No, absolutely, you got a second.
I'll give you a third.
Okay, the other item that I would like to bring back, again, it goes with the impact fees, and it was what we had brought forward, and that was with park impact fees. And there's a level of them not blending together, and what I'm talking about here is the component for land acquisition for parks that we're charging. And we have a general plan that states that we want 5 acres per 1,000. We have a capital improvement plan that says that we want 12 acres per 1,000. And we have an impact fee study that has some disconnect with how many parks that we, even the acreage that we even own anymore. Ken Adam Park, for an example, we have given some of that land up, but we have it in the study as still as land that is developed park land, and we've given that to Hancock. So there's some disconnect in there, and what I'm asking for on this is to bring back, again, the park component of land acquisition for the impact fee study to come back for suspension of the component and for discussion and action, again, for potentially suspending the component of the park land acquisition until it aligns with what we're doing. Do we only want 5 acres per 1,000, or do we want to change the general plan back to 12 acres per 1,000? What is it we're looking at doing? But to bring it back for discussion and possible action again at the next meeting.
I tell you, I would love to give a second on that, and I would like to be able to discuss Quimby and some of the other elements that go into the AB 1600. So absolutely, on my part.
Yes.
Okay, and
yeah, Quimby fees are not part of the AB 1600.
No, but they do count. I mean, they are part of a park that's not analyzed. I absolutely understand, Brad. I just would like to be able to discuss that during this discussion also. No report on it. I mean, I just want to make public aware. I don't need any specific numbers on it, nothing.
the two other items that I wanted to just comment upon is for the people who aren't aware of the Smart Landscape Rebate Program that the city has available, for those people who take out, redo parts of their landscaping, there is a program the city provides. There are paperwork and documents in here on the back side of City Hall when you come in. There's a whole stack up there. If not, you can ask people at the counter up that, and where they're offering a rebate of up to $2 per square foot, up to 500 square foot for removal of grass, and when you replace it with water-wise landscaping. I know there's a lot of people that aren't aware that there's a program out there, but the city does have a document over here available at City Hall. Another book that I came across that I wanted to just comment on quickly is there's been a lot of questions about that old Lompoc Valley Motorsports Park, and people said there wasn't a business plan, and there actually is a proposal book that's out there, and from what I gather, City Hall had quite a few copies that were delivered 5 to 6 years ago, so there are people poking around with still some questions, and there is a document that's out there that potentially would answer a lot of the questions that people have out there. There's an answer to the question about insurance and who is going to do that and who is going to pay and fund that. So there is a book available, Lompoc Valley Motorsports Park Proposal, Building a Better Lompoc, it says. And the city, I believe they still have a document somewhere, but those of you who want to look at it, there is a book that has a business proposal in it. And with that, I will conclude.
Councilman Starbuck.
Ms. Gallivan, what I had was a suggestion. I don't know if I would need council consent, but you know, over the last few years, CDBG money, we've redone Manville ball fields. We're in the process now of redoing Thompson Park. For years, we've always heard our sports fields bring people in, you know, they're economic drivers. I thought it would maybe be a good project for the Economic Development Committee to, are they? And how much are they? Are we getting a bang for our buck out of JM ball fields? I mean, it cost us $160,000 to do this. How many people come to these tournaments? How many, you know, just some numbers. We haven't received numbers from the committee for quite some time, and I think it might be interesting to make decisions on some of our capital improvement plan, later on.
Councilmember Vega.
I do have a council request. The document we received tonight regarding the Hilton Garden Inn is very interesting. I would like to request that we put this on the agenda and bring this back and have a discussion on the viability of the reallocation of bed tax on a new building like that, because what I'm looking at parks, possibly if the viability of use, and we're looking at possibly putting into a capital improvement fund for police station and replacement of fire station 2. Wow, if that can be done, if allowed, that would be a great way to have a savings plan for the capital improvements that we desperately need outside of raising utility rates. So if I could, I'd love to, I have a council request that we bring this back regarding the Hilton Garden Inn and the allocation of bed tax revenue, and so we can have a discussion on this and see what the viability is of changing the rules on what we do with this money. It looks like, according to this, sales tax and property tax can go to the general fund, but how can we do this and actually help our public safety needs and our parks needs? So that is my council request, that we bring that back for discussion. And
Councilmember Vega, I request, did you want to say something?
Just that we don't have in our hands whatever you're referring to.
Councilmember Vega, I respect your request for a council request on that. My feeling on this is that this discussion should be during our budget discussions coming up, because that would fit right in. I mean, that's exactly what we're supposed to be doing in the budget discussion. So why we'd want to have that ahead of time, but if that's what we
well,
want
I
to do,
guess my request is to find out if it's even doable, viable. Like I said, it's a request.
Okay, so.
You guys approve it or don't, but I think it's something we can talk about.
Councilmember Humdahl?
Yeah, I got some things which is.
Well, no, wait. We're still on Councilmember Vega's request. So we need a second and a third.
I'd like some support at least have a conversation on this, if it's viable or not, and then we can move on to the budget discussions. If it's not even viable, then it won't make it that far.
The one thing that I would love to be able to second and start pre-thinking some things on the budget, but I've given it some thought for a little bit, and one of the things that I have the concern with is how much are they really going to bring in? What is going to happen? What is the final outlay of people? It's a great thought. Mr. Lynn made a great presentation on it, but is it something that we want to start right now, or do we want to wait a few months and when it's built out a little more and look at? I don't want to put things off, but I'm wondering if this one wouldn't hurt to put off just a little bit, because we're working with unknown numbers on a not even halfway finished hotel right now. So I'm sketchy but positive.
Yeah, I got you. And part of the reason I brought it up is, without seeing this ahead of time or knowing anything about it, I see the owner's route in the audience, and I think out of respect, why are we afraid to even discuss it? I'm not asking for any action, but we discuss a lot of things that really are meaningless, okay? So why can't we discuss this to find out if it's even doable and then move to the next stage of the budget concerns? If it's not able to be done, what harm have we done?
I don't have any problem with bringing it back. Again, what harm could be done for discussion? And at least we start getting items on the table for discussion. Granted, we have the cart a little bit before the horse, but it'd be nice to have a discussion here, and the city manager could give his 2 bits, 3 bits, 4 bits on that one, and we can see how it lays out.
And that's all really I'm asking
I'd
for,
give you
to
a second
find out
with
if it's even something we can do, guys.
No, I'll support you with this, Mr. Vega, and say, for the discussion, I wouldn't want to make any decisions.
No, I got you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Humdahl.
Did I hear right? You want that for the next meeting as well?
We got a hell of a lot of stuff on the next meeting.
Didn't say it had to be the next meeting, sir, okay? But I would like it in the near future if we could.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you, the Parks and Recreation Commission I made last week was an excellent one. And it was at the Dewey Center. We had a crowd there. but also the staff and the board worked real good together. I'd been there for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks before, whatever. I never seen the workmanship we had that night, so I think that committee is working real good. It had plenty of room, we had a lot of people there. The other thing, I don't know if anybody pays attention in the news anymore, but now wine is coming in a can. The new thing is canned wine. It was on TV today. And so then they say about 25% of all wine is going to be in cans in the next 10 years. So I mean, and that's why they're coming to the Hilton Gardens to drink wine in a can. So. The other thing is that my understanding is right that we are now tearing up and taking care of mattresses. We're bringing mattresses.
We do have a program that is being put in place. I don't know that it's effective just yet, but once it is, we will promote that.
Oh, good, because that'll get rid of a lot of those out of the alleys. So I think that's an excellent idea. And let people know we've got to get it out very much so they know where it's at. It's a good idea. They're able to tear the whole mattress completely apart the way it sounds like metal and everything. So,
It's a recycling program.
oh, good.
I do have one more thing.
Sure, go ahead.
As Mayor Pro Tem, I attended the domestic violence vigil this last Thursday at Ryan Park. It was quite an event. I'm glad I attended. It's quite heartwarming to see all the people that have been affected by it, and I thought it was a really nice event, so thank you.
Okay, I attended no meetings, but I will add to Councilmember Humdahl's comment about beer in a can. Colorado has marijuana in a can as well, so I guess you can put anything in a can, so. Okay, so with nothing else, this Lompoc City Council meeting is adjourned to a regular meeting of 6:30 p.m. on November 1st, 2016. Thank you and good night.
Aye.